our goal of increasing public safety, encouraging a more positive shopping experience, and leading to more successful businesses in our downtown. Thank you for your time and consideration in this matter.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the presenter? Go ahead, Mayor Dion.
No questions. I just want to pass on all day Sunday, wherever I went out for Father's Day, and I heard nothing but positives about the street fair. I heard they were better organized. You went there, you got a map, you knew where to go, you knew where to set up, bing, bang, boom. They said it was the easiest thing to get in and get out of. And of course, we also have to thank the weather helped us.
Yes.
Well, actually, it got a little too hot because quite a few vendors sold out of water, but that's a nice thing to say that we sold out of items. But it was just a great success, and I did know that it made our community feel a lot better. So thank you for sharing.
Yes, thank you for that.
Thank you. Councillor Lennox Zepp. Oh.
Thank you. It's not a question, just a comment, is that we also do have the, at the Prince Albert Police Service, we do have the proactive policing unit. And my understanding is that that unit the focus is for police officers to be doing proactive work, foot patrols, driving patrols, bicycle patrols, in order to proactively try to prevent crime, go to places that are hot spots in our community, and try to prevent crime from happening. So I just wanted to add that as well. And I see that the suggestion here is to refer to the Board of Police Commissioners. I'm happy to make that motion.
Thank you.
May I add that this consultation or this contract was with consultation with the Prince Albert City Police. It's a joint group effort, and there will be consultation with Prince Albert's Security Services with the City of Prince Albert as to jointly work together on this contract.
Thank you. Councillor Zurkowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Rhonda, for all your hard work in getting this street fair up and going again. Out of your office, thank you for all the hard work and a lot of the legwork. I think a lot of people don't realize what it took. I certainly don't realize the amount of effort it took out of your office. So thank you for that. It's not the necessarily the corporation, the City of Prince Albert, but it's organizations like yours and partnerships, I think, that make our city shine, and last Saturday it certainly did, and thank you for that. What I'm really excited about is the conversations and opportunities and partnerships that may come next. And so I'm hopeful that the conversations between your office and senior admin here and city manager here will continue, and sort of an effort towards what else can we do? What else can we do more together to improve our downtown core? So I'm looking forward to those conversations happening, and especially if there's any asks or any opportunities for those partnerships as we head into the fall, into budget. I think that's, I'd like to be involved in, I think we'd like to be involved in those conversations. So
Thank you.
thank you for what you've done.
I think one of our goals is just to work together to make life better for everybody. So
Well said.
thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Kate. Sorry, Councillor Edwards. I'll just go through. Thank you.
Okay.
Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thanks, Rhonda, for everything you do downtown there, and Perry. I really like the idea of hiring security. I think it's important. The public are looking to be safer. I think it's critical downtown, and I really hope that we, as a city, work with you on that and find the support that's required, because we want people to shop downtown. We want people to be in all of our shopping areas, and it's difficult. With some of the people that are walking around right now, you know, they're intimidating. They're intimidating to the shoppers, and it's and hopefully the security company can move them away from the in front of the stores, and that people don't want to enter when sometimes there are people there being aggressive and looking for money and selling, you know, illegal substances. Working with the police in that way is going to be huge. More eyes on the road is going to be huge. So I really appreciate this. This is going to be good for downtown. And I hope we can expand that idea to maybe not strictly central or that main area, but we can expand it. But let's see how it goes. So I really
Yes.
appreciate the efforts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Grodnick.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you, Rhonda, again, for the street fair. It was a great event. The weather was great. The food was fantastic. For anybody that didn't have to cook that day, it was great. And so I know everybody looks forward to it and always hopes for good weather, and the weather shone on Prince Albert that day for sure. So that's good. So thank you for that. With your request, I too want to echo some of the things that I already heard, that the downtown, and I applaud you and your committee and your board for trying to address some of the issues of the downtown, and not only address them and talk about them, but then there's some action now happening to make it safer in the downtown. And in your letter, I commend you for also addressing other levels of government, because homelessness and social issues is not a city responsibility, totally. We are taking the lead in this, and we are doing something that should be the responsibility of a level of government that has hundreds and billions more than we do, that could deal with these issues. And according to some of the agencies that work with homelessness, have criticized the provincial government in particular for adding to it with rental issues and all of those
Yes.
kinds of things. So I applaud you for doing that. We still have to remember that these are residents of our city, whether you're homeless or whether you're wandering the streets of downtown. And so I think having security and having this issue addressed in a respectful manner will help people feel safe downtown, help the merchants downtown, and also be respectful to people that are homeless. And so I see nothing but good things here, and know that I think most councillors here you have our support in the pad bid, that we want to make sure that we help the downtown, we help businesses in Prince Albert, and that we don't put roadblocks in the way. And if there are, let councillors know,
Okay.
and we'll address those issues so that we can all work together and make Prince Albert a better place, and downtown in particular. So.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The pad bid board met with city police and with Mr. Roger Reimer, and we have every confidence that Roger and his team will be able to have a positive impact on our downtown.
Yeah.
So,
Like I know
We're
other
hopeful.
places, like, in other countries, I had a client of mine that said the bus comes at night, picks them up, and we never see these people. We don't do that here in Canada, and
No.
thankfully we don't. And I'm happy that we're going to try to deal with these issues in a positive, respectful way. They are
Yes.
people, right? Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Dion.
Well, I have to apologize because I was supposed to say another thank you while they were here. She talks about partnerships. Well, this year, the Prince Albert Exhibition partnered with the Downtown Fair, and very successfully. We supplied them equipment that we have lots of, that we're going to start supplying to other community groups in our community. But in return, they advertised the exhibition that is going on August 2nd to the 6th. So it was a great partnership for the exhibition, and they also wanted to say thank you.
Okay,
Well-
so
Sorry.
go ahead.
You know, we're not an island unto ourselves, and we are trying to build that sense of community again. And so part of my goal is to be collaborative and to work with the business community and other organizations. So the Prince Albert Exhibition was very gracious in allowing us to use 20 of their picnic tables, which was such a wonderful addition to the street fair. I think the people of Prince Albert really appreciated being able to sit down and enjoy the live entertainment that was provided. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Not seeing any other questions for the presenter, so thank you very much. There is a motion on the floor. We'll vote on that. The vote is now open. The vote passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Next on the agenda is the consent agenda. Oh, sorry, I just have to move on here. Councillor Lennox-Zepp.
6.2,
Councillor Edwards.
6.4, please.
Councillor Lennox-Zepp.
could I add 6.3?
Okay. Councillor Grodnick.
I'll move the rest.
Thank you very much. The consent agenda is open for vote. Okay, it passes. Okay, item 6.2. Go ahead,
Lauren.
Councillor Lennox-Zepp.
Thank you. I'm going to move that correspondence 2265 be received and referred to the Planning and Development Services Department, and that a response be sent to the author.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
If I may, I do have I did want to put this to, I believe, the city manager. So this may be for the city manager or it may be for planning director. But the question being, this correspondence is asking the question, why is it that the land purchased for the new aquatic and arenas facility, why is it that the city determined that a appropriate price would be $9 million when neighboring land nearby has been priced at not such a high value?
Thank you. City manager, would you like to answer, or are we? Okay, to the director of planning. Go ahead.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Lennox-Zepp, for the question. What I will say is that, yes, I've read the letter, and I'm certainly prepared to contact the writer of the letter to confirm, costs and breakdowns and things like that. Comparatively speaking, I think we're talking about two different types of land, and I'll certainly confirm that with the writer of the letter. In regards to our land purchase, I know at the time we did look at a few comparable pieces of land, and they were quite close in value. When it came to the actual negotiation, however, I believe that was led by our previous city manager. So I can't speak to what those negotiations were, but I can certainly speak to and provide written correspondence on what we consider when pricing and valuing land.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you. Mayor Dion.
Well, I'm glad that the director's going to respond, because I did make some calls to Sask Real Estate, and I think it'll be a good exercise for the writer of the letter, who's only held his commercial sales license for under 2 years. So is certainly not an expert by any means on price of land. And comparable to RM to city land, there is no comparable. We have city land, we have city water, city sewer. The difference is we got it flat. The land that they buy, they have to service with either a well or rural water or a septic tank system, and pay for the power lines to come in. They have the advantage, they don't do sidewalks, they don't do curbs. So I'm glad that we're going to respond to the author, because I think this will be a good learning experience for a young guy that wants to get into commercial. They were a little surprised that he did write the letter, but I'll deal that on a separate letter. But I'm glad the department's going to answer them because it is two different parcels.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Councillor Grodnick.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I too am a little bit surprised. Like I get if you just look at the two issues without what Mayor Dion said, but we're paying for land in a city. Land in a city, number one, is a little more expensive than land in a rural area, I would think. I'm no expert on real estate, but just, I don't know, to me, it doesn't, they're not comparable, as the director said as well. And as Mayor Dion outlined, that this is serviced land. This is land that's going to be in that whole entertainment district is going to be a destination place. You know, with the two rinks and the aquatic center in phase 1, phase 2 is another larger rink, and phase 3 is a library and I think a daycare was supposed to be there. I don't know if that's still in the phase 3, but when you look at this land, and it's in a great location. Even if we look at down the road at the future, if it does pan out where the province is going to extend Highway 11, Highway 2 is going to become less busy, and Highway 11 will extend past this district, and that will be the destination for Highway 11. If they continue the Highway 11 onto building a bridge, et cetera, outside the city, you hear all of that, if that happens. And so I think that we're not comparing apples to apples. And so I'm glad that our director will, and I'm confident in our director that he will respond in an appropriate manner with all of the facts that are given, and with the real estate agent who dealt with this particular land for Signature Developments, I think is a very honorable person in our city, and so I'm confident that we did the right thing in purchasing of this land and paying the price that we purchased the land for. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Edwards.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'm going to support the motion because he certainly deserves a response. But again, like it's been repeated, this is apples to bananas. This isn't anywhere close to the same. And when I look at the letter, it says the recent purchase is not really recent. This is really old news. We talked about it a while ago, and we went through this. And here we are, we're going through it again to create some more, or attempt to create some more negativity on a very positive build for our city. And here we are, we're discussing negativity. It's unfortunate. But I do know also that the land that's selling out there right now is selling for $500,000 plus. An acre. So I think we got a pretty fair deal in the whole shake of things. So we certainly look forward to seeing that letter, responding to the person that wrote into us. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Grodnick.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just needed to add one other thing, because I had a discussion with this real estate agent as well, and I couldn't remember why we purchased the extra land for $3 million. We purchased an extra 7 acres or something like that, and I mentioned it last meeting, but I want to mention again today is that it was all about parking. We wanted to make sure we had enough parking, and the Director of Public Works, I think in one of our meetings somewhere, said that the parking was based on national standards, which is little vehicles in Toronto. And we don't drive little vehicles in Prince Albert and in Saskatchewan and in Western Canada. A lot of people drive trucks, etc. And it went from 150 parking stalls per acre to 100 parking stalls per acre. So we had to make the parking stalls larger. That's why we had to purchase the additional land. The last thing we want to do is have an entertainment district without enough parking. And this particular plan has the adequate parking for vehicles that people drive in Western Canada and in Saskatchewan, and not, I'm not bashing. People can drive whatever they want, but we drive these vehicles here, and that's why we needed to make the parking stalls a little bit bigger. There's nothing more annoying than going into a skinny little parking stall with your truck or with your Jeep or something like that, and the result is not nice. So I'm happy that we did that, and I support our decisions and my past votes, and I needed to say that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lennox.
Just a procedural question for the director. Back to Councillor Edwards' comment that it would be nice for council to see that response that comes from administration. Is that any issue for the director if to have that also copied to council?
Just 1 second. Was that a point of procedure for the chair?
I don't think so. I apologize. I did use the word procedure, but I meant sort of technical. I should have used the
Thank
word
you.
technical
you.
question.
Thanks. Oh. With power.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. The letter will be, it'll be written with factual information. So if council would like to see a copy of that letter, I've got no issues providing it to you.
I think that's what I'm hearing. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, ready to the vote? Okay, gotcha. Thank you very much. The vote is now open. The vote is closed. Accepted. Next item is 6.3, styrofoam and plastic ban. Councillor Lennox.
Thank you. I move that this report be received as information and filed. Just to confirm, so for the public, but also for myself, from the director, just to confirm that, as I understand reading the report, that the federal government is already in the process of banning the use of some single-use plastics. And did I read that correctly, that also styrofoam clamshell items to be used at restaurants, that we're expecting that to also be in the federal prohibition coming soon?
Thank you. Director Hicks.
Thank you for that question. In today's news, it was released today, the federal government has announced that the 6 items which are listed here will be banned federally by the end of the year. That was released this morning. So
And as I recall, it includes styrofoam.
I believe so.
Thank you. Yeah, so that makes perfect sense that we as a city would not then need to act on this item, and that the federal government is moving forward on prohibiting some single-use plastics and styrofoam.
Okay, we are ready for the vote. The vote is now open. Vote is carried. Next item, 6.4. Crime Stopper bumper stickers. Go ahead, Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I would like to move a motion that the city move forward with the request to add the bumper stickers to city vehicles. And I'd like to talk on it.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. You know what? This is an inexpensive effort to reduce crime in our city. Crime Stoppers plays a valuable role, often reporting information on crimes that the city police aren't able to report. And so when people call in to Crime Stoppers, they can put it right onto their website and say, here, we're looking for this individual. And this is important for the city. And the more we get the number out to report these crimes, the better it is for the overall city. It's an inexpensive opportunity to help out the overall city. Thank you.
Councillor Miller.
Thank you. I couldn't agree more. However, I believe it's already being done. So there's a few parked vehicles of city sitting here, and they do have the new stickers on already.
Thank you. Councillor Head.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. No, I agree. I remember this presentation well, and I thought it was a small effort from our part to put stickers on our vehicle. And I see there's some worry that these will need to be replaced, but it sounds to me that the individual who was presenting, it wouldn't appear that that would be an issue as well. So I'm glad to see that we have a pilot project working, and yeah, however we can ensure doing some attempts to keep our community safe by highlighting a phone number. I think we should, and definitely any work we can do to achieve people's safety. We've seen a report this evening, presentation about some efforts made there. Yeah, we have to do some of these steps, so supporting this motion.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no other, we're ready to vote. The vote is now open. The vote carries. Next items are reports of administration. First item up is 7.1 or 7.6, sorry, Margot Fournier Center Expression of Interest, a verbal presentation by Director of Community Services, Boulay. Go ahead.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of council for the opportunity. First, I would just like to welcome Grand Chief Brian Hardlot. Al Ducharme is the Executive Director with Prince Albert Grand Council, and also Jeff Despins is also the Director of Urban Services. They're present here today as we consider this matter, and also want to thank them for their partnership that we have on many levels as a city. Previously, we had submitted or distributed an expression of interest for the Margot Fournier Center. This was to solicit interest from external organizations for the sale of the Margot Fournier Center, where we could focus on some targeted service delivery in the downtown. As part of that expression of interest process, we did have multiple meetings with representatives from the Prince Albert Grand Council regarding a proposal that they submitted. We do have highlights of that proposal within the cover report that you have on your agenda and also attached to the report. Also, I'm sure if there's questions or things of that matter, they also could expand in addition to my presentation. The lease agreement that we're proposing, which is the second recommendation for the Kinsman Community Heritage Center, the lease agreement there and the intent of that is for perpetual control to remain with the city for that site so that the seniors organization that has been there for many years continues to positively utilize that space for their programs and events, and also to maintain that at no cost to the seniors organization. So that would maintain or remain a responsibility of the city under these recommendations and within this proposal. The third component that I would just draw your attention to is potential or some consultation that we have currently underway with the Fournier family. We felt it was appropriate to make some initial contact with the family so that they're aware in advance of this going public, and also to gauge some interest from the family on the naming of the facility and potentially how that could look like moving forward. That would be the third recommendation in which we're looking to bring back further information to members of council in a formal report. Under the consultation section, we spoke about in the communication section, we spoke about opportunities for recreation and fitness programs to continue to be promoted at the Alfred Jenkins Fieldhouse. I would like to add that we also have had some consideration within the department, even previous to this expression of interest being issued, to expand upon the programming that is offered at the Art Center here just directly out front of City Hall. We have offered yoga programming and some general fitness programming there in the past to just gauge some interest, and knowing that there is some interest in the downtown and some demand in the downtown for fitness programming and some recreation opportunities, we are continuing to investigate that. We do feel there's opportunity, and I have spoken to our arts and cultural coordinator about that opportunity, both in the interior of the facility and also some opportunity at the exterior. Under the financial implications of the report, it speaks to the purchase price that has been offered, also speaks to the commercial tax levy that would apply to the Margot Fournier Centre site. And also we felt it was appropriate to outline the current operating budget that we have within our budget documents for the Margot Fournier Centre. Should we consider retaining the facility, then of course we would continue with a need in our operating budget to meet those needs. However, also commit to a little more of a long-term capital plan to meet the needs of the facility, as it is a 1966 facility that will need some attention in the future, and we felt it was appropriate to share that information today as well. There's numerous attachments, some of the attachments I referenced already, and it's also very clear on there the lease area plan for the site that I referenced that would apply to the lease agreement should these recommendations be approved. I'm certainly available for any questions, and I think that would conclude the presentation for now.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Mayor Dion.
I'll move the recommendations. And then my question is more to the city solicitor, as we have quite a delegation here from the Heritage Centre. And I just want to assure them that the lease is for $1, that we're taking on all the costs and liabilities, and that includes the parking lot in the front and the common area, that the only time this agreement would falter is if them as an organization, the Heritage Centre, voted to discontinue. Otherwise, the lease goes on to impunity, and that we're 100% in control and are paying the cost. So if you could just confirm that I got that right in the agreement, please.
Go ahead, Solicitor.
Thank you for the question, Mayor Dion, Deputy Mayor, and members of council. Yes, we've negotiations, the results of negotiations with the PAGC that we were directed to undertake have been, I've been made aware of them, and we have drafted documentation that would cover all of those items and more that Mayor Dion is referencing. Article 26 of the agreement would make the agreement conditional upon a perpetual lease being granted. That would cover the Kinsman Community Heritage Centre and premises. That would cover that portion of the building that is named the Kinsman Community Heritage Centre, as well as the parking lot adjacent to the north side, the connecting vestibule on the east side, and the outdoor breezeway to the southeast. And under the agreement as drafted, which needs to be reviewed by both parties yet, it conveys to the city a continuing and exclusive lease and right of tenancy to be used for the current use, the continuation of the current use for seniors programming. The term of that lease would be a perpetual term. Control remains with the city throughout. It would ensure the city's continuing perpetual control of the lease premises for the seniors programs and events and all seniors use. The rent would be nominal at $1 per year. The purchaser's use and ownership of the land would not interrupt, impede, or interfere with the seniors' use of the property. Maintenance and repair, the city would continue to maintain responsibility for cleaning and maintenance of the property for the seniors programming, and to pay utilities proportionately on behalf of the seniors' use. Signage and name would not change. There'd be a right to continue the signage and naming of the Kinsman Community Heritage Centre throughout, and the lease would, the termination of that lease would be in the control of the seniors organization operating the programming in the lease premises, and it would only be upon the seniors organization themselves deciding to dissolve or discontinue that the city would give consideration to terminating that perpetual lease. So those are the terms that I understand have been negotiated and that we have incorporated into the draft agreement that would come back before council.
Thank you very much, because that was our main concern, and we went off it. And the other thing, I just want to make a general comment to them. We did at some point look at whether we should sell the property or lease it. But the problem that we have is that, as the director said, the building was built in 1966, and I cannot see anyone investing in a building on a lease agreement putting money into our property. And so that's why the sale is the number one option. And it's the building, to me, is underutilized. This will give it a use. And if I go back into history, even though that council didn't carry through, when the soccer center was built, at that point, the Margot was to be closed. And that's why they added the gym and all the other amenities up there to fill it. I am pleased to hear that we are looking at the art center for some of the smaller programs like yoga that only pay, I think, $5 a month. You know, it's not a revenue issue. And so I'm glad to see that you're working on maybe to solve that for some of the people that are downtown that still want that program, that we have it. But at the end of the day, I want to congratulate all the partners because I think this has gone very well, and I'm looking forward to moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lennox-Up.
I move an amendment
Go ahead.
that the city offer to lease the Margot Fournier Centre to the Prince Albert Grand Council. That the city offer to lease the Margot Fournier Centre to the Prince Albert Grand Council. And I'd like to speak on it.
I don't think that that is an amendment to what is on the floor. It's an actual change.
If that's the decision of the chair, then I would ask then I'll make my comments.
Okay, go ahead.
The Margot Fournier Centre, as has been stated, was built in 1966. And so from my math, that's approximately a 56-year-old building. 56-year-old building. We have many buildings in our city that are 56 years old and older. And we, as a city, are spending millions of dollars to build a new civic facility, an aquatic and arenas facility. And if in 56 years we say we couldn't possibly deal with the maintenance, we couldn't possibly deal with maintaining a city facility, that would be such a shame. And that's true for the Aquatic and Arena Center, and it is true for the Margot Fournier Center. I have not yet seen any report from this city stating any astronomical costs of maintaining this building. Any reason, when people come up to me and say, Tara, why is it that the city is so bent on selling this particular building, I can't show them a report that can answer that. I can't show any numbers that say that there's a specific price tag or a specific issue with this 56-year-old building. So there is no appropriate maintenance building reason that we as a city should be selling a city asset. Now, I very much appreciate that the Prince Albert Grand Council is here today and that they've expressed interest in using the building. That's wonderful. We should be considering uses of that building. And so that's why my suggestion is that why wouldn't we, and I don't have an answer for this, why wouldn't we as a city maintain ownership, own that land in a very important location just off 2nd Avenue, and own that building? Why wouldn't we as a city?
Excuse me? Excuse me? Please wait for the chair to rule and to put your speaker on. Do you have a point of order? Just one moment, please.
She's arguing the motion that you disallowed. She's arguing, why don't we lease it? She's back to that subject. And we're not here to talk about leasing. The motion says that we're going to sell the building. So she's trying to get her point out why the lease should be an option, and that's not part of the presentation.
Thank you.
That's my point.
Thank you, Mayor. Continue, Councillor Lennox-Up, but please stay on the motion.
So the motion is regarding a sale, and there is no reason for a city why, and I haven't been given a report that answers, why would we sell this building? Why is it that there is such impetus to be selling a 56-year-old civic asset when we could lease it? I think usage of the building is great, but why is it that we would choose to sell it? I apologize, Chair. I do believe that I'm on point here, that I'm talking about why we would not sell.
Right.
So I also wanted to make mention that Mr. Bill Norman is present here with the Kinsman Community Heritage Center, and I have spoken with members of the Kinsman Community Heritage Center, and I understand they're very concerned that this is a building that they use, and that we as a city are talking about selling the building, albeit, as has been stated, maintaining usage of the heritage side, fine. However, that's a real change and a real serious difference between a city owning the building or not owning a building. And I'd like a real answer as to why would we need to sell this building? I don't have that answer. I've also spoken to individuals who use the current programming. So right now, there are 30, and sometimes more than 30, seniors every Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 9:30 a.m. They attend Easy Adult Fitness in the morning. It's important to their lifestyle. They tell me, look, we like coming here. We enjoy using this gymnasium. And how many classes in our city have consistently 30 people showing up 3 times a week? And it's important to our citizens to be able to have civic facilities and to be able to use them in a convenient way. This particular Easy Adult Fitness is in a building that's connected to a seniors heritage center. So after you attend your fitness class in the morning, you can then also utilize the other side of the building and go to heritage programs as they are offered. There's also a 12:15 aerobics class, and if you go to that, you'll note that there are lots of women who work downtown in the different office buildings, government buildings, that tell me that it is very convenient for them to be doing their aerobics class in a downtown location. And it's not a yoga class. It's a very upbeat, heavy-moving cardio often, 12:15 class. We also host 5:15 evening classes on some nights per week. Same thing, that people attend because it's a convenient location. People work in our downtown. And we do want to utilize our downtown. So from my perspective, we do not have a reason why we would sell this building. That we can certainly talk about partnerships and usage of the building, but selling this building is out of the question. We have not had any public consultation. We received this public report on Thursday at 4 p.m., and today's Monday. We have done no public consultation on what do the public want. We have not heard that yet, and we are failing in public consultation as a city, and I want to see us as a city do better and to go out to the public and ask them, what do you want? This is your tax dollars at play. What do you want? And lastly, I know that I will hear from members of council saying, look, the reason we want to sell this building is because we don't like paying the operational costs. We don't like continually paying to maintain this building and to pay staff to be at the building, and that there are social issues surrounding the building. That all may be true, but we as a city can work to remedy those problems. So that is not an appropriate answer to why we would outright sell a building. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor, excuse me, there's no clapping, sorry, in the gallery. Sorry. Councillor Grodnick.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'm in favor of the motion, and I'll speak why. First of all, this is a deal between 2 governments, the City of Prince Albert and Chief, Grand Hardlot, and PAGC. 2 governments that operate in the city and govern and are responsible for making sound decisions for their respective citizens. It's a good deal, and we have assumptions made that Prince Albert Grand Council is not going to work with the community. Look at the list of programs that are going to be offered there. And we're making assumptions that PAGC doesn't want seniors in the building. That's what your presentation was about, Councillor. And I think that's furthest from the truth. The list here is educational resources, driver's license training, life skills programs, odd job squad, community and sports programming in the gymnasium, community programming in the gymnasium. That doesn't mean just PAGC. That means the community. The PAGC is part of our community. We're part of PAGC community. We need to work together on these things. Cultural programming with elders' presence. partnerships with the Kinsman Community Senior Center. They want to partner. They're saying this. They want to work with the Kinsman Community Senior Center. Return to school events, mentorship program with city police. How about that? Having PAGC and members of PAGC working on mentorship with our city of Prince Albert Police. I think it's a positive step. I was reluctant at first, the sale of this, and the senior center. What was going to happen with the senior center? I think our city solicitor outlined exactly what's going to happen. I was reluctant because of the Margot Fournier name. You know, Margot Fournier was a citizen that had a great impact on our community. And she didn't buy the name to that building. That's the thing that happens today is we're selling everything, which I don't particularly care for, but that's how we operate. And we acknowledged her because of her huge, important contribution. I mean, we have our city solicitor was a result of her contributions in this community as part of the boys' choir. Is that correct, Mitch? Yeah. And I mean, and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of other members of our community were a direct result of Margot Fournier. So when I saw in this report that the Margot Fournier name is going to be maintained somewhere in the city, somewhere in the arts community, that to me really helped me get over losing the Margot Fournier Center as that particular building, and then because of the naming, that was one of my points that I was really concerned about. So the fact that we're going to work on that, the fact that the Heritage Center is going to be maintained as an entity right now, and the fact that we can work with Prince Albert Grand Council, with another government in our city, I think is a positive. And it talks about the inclusivity of our community. It talks about reconciliation, that we can work together and come up with positive programming. And as I said, when I look at all of that programming that is planned for that particular facility, it's going to be a great facility in our downtown that's going to be active. 15 staff members are going to be in there when PAGC takes over immediately. Right now we have 2 or 3 as a city. The gym is going to be maintained. The gymnasium is going to be maintained. And so the programming will be there for all of the community. And so I applaud Jeff and his hard work with Urban Services and all the things that he does that goes unmentioned in our community. He doesn't get the recognition that he deserves of the things that he does. He does so much, and it goes unnoticed by many people. But I know, Jeff, you're going to do a great programming in this building, and I hope that you have all the chiefs that agree and give you that money that you need. Just a plug there for the chief, Grand Chief, and so that you can do the programming and make it a success. Let's have the attitude, how are we going to make this work and be successful for our community, rather than no. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Those are all comments I have right now.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Zurikowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I'm certainly not in favor of any change to this facility that results in placing any doubt to the future of the Heritage Centre. The few of the seniors that I chatted with before tonight and in the lobby tonight expressed that real concern about what's going to happen with their facility. And there's been some fear spread in this room here tonight. And that's why I'm very thankful for the facts that administration has mentioned. We heard straight from the city solicitor from the proposed agreement that the control of the Heritage Centre will remain under their control to perpetuity. And my understanding, we can ask the lawyer, but my understanding, that means forever, as long as the rivers flow. So, and that portion of the building will remain under at least the responsibility of the city. So I think some of those questions were answered tonight, and I was listening closely because those were the questions that I wanted to ask after chatting with some folks. So I'm pleased to hear that there will be efforts made to move some of that programming that hasn't been well attended over the years. But in spite of that, I can't believe I can go to yoga for $5 an hour, but
No, it's set for the whole season.
for the whole season, that's good priced yoga. That some of the program will move to other locations, such as the Arts Center, and keeping that core of participants downtown, which is important. And we're lucky enough to have an organization to step forward and say, we recognize there's issues in Prince Albert, and take over that facility. When 10 years ago, the city was contemplating closing that facility. A lot of people have been asking, what are you doing? What's the city doing to deal with the issues of Prince Albert? And I've seen time and time again how real, meaningful, small steps forward in our city come with wonderful partnerships. And this is a meaningful change. And this is one thing we as a city can do in partnership with an organization that has a proven track record to go and take over that facility and run some programming, many of which my colleague to the right mentioned. And that adds a lot of value, and that addresses a lot of the weaknesses and struggles in our city and some of the gaps in services that other levels of government still have their heads firmly implanted in the sand. So we are screaming and yelling. Our hair is on fire collectively to deal and run towards the sound of the cannon and deal with some of the problems we have in our community. And so we need the expertise of the PAGC to offer those services. And I'm very excited and thankful that the PAGC has expressed, and I heard it out here again tonight, time and time again, the willingness to cooperate, that willingness in partnership, to have, if that's what it takes, at least meet once a month with the Heritage Center, to have that relationship, because relationships are important, and that's what makes our city better. So having those questions answered about, and having them locked down, not just say this is the intent, but it's in the agreement. The future of the Heritage Center, that organization, is locked down to perpetuity, and that it remains in the control of the city. I think those are two answers to questions that I've been asked, and I feel very comfortable moving forward and looking forward to increased partnerships with the PAGC, because things need to get done. And I appreciate the PAGC and their staff. And I would like to recognize Chief Hardlot for being here tonight in Chambers, and thank you for being here in partnership, because it's going to take all of us to move forward in a positive way, put the fear aside, and make positive changes in our community.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Head.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Great comments. I appreciate some of the comments made by some of the councillors. And I do want to say hello and welcome to those in attendance today. Usually it's a small group of us here, so it's always exciting when we have a full delegation, definitely. And then of course a welcome to Grand Chief Hartlett here as well. And I want to say that I know there's some fears, some apprehensions about this going forward as you guys are attending here today. But you've heard from our city solicitor, we've heard from some of the reports that it will be maintained. Some of the benefits or some of the program you have will be honored and maintained. I also feel this will serve our community as a whole. Definitely, we'll all get value from this exchange of property. And that goes to public consultation. I think our councillor from the right of me here says that, there wasn't enough, but I can tell you that I've heard a lot from our individuals, our residents, whether it be in my ward or from throughout the city, on some of the issues we see socially in downtown. And I do feel that Prince Albert Grand Council has done a lot of work with their membership and with the city as a whole to try to improve some of the lives of our residents, whether they be homeless, whether they're struggling with mental health issues, whether we lack of funding and our programs. They've been there to do that for that work, and very important work, I have to say. You know, one thing about our culture is First Nations people, elders are highly respected. And so I want to say that that's, you know, we're always mindful of that as well. A lot of comments have been said, so I won't speak a whole lot. We're going to have another chance to address some of these, this motion at City Council if it passes tonight, which I hope it does, because I will be supporting this motion wholeheartedly. I think this is a great move in the direction of some of our struggles we see in our city. And the good point was made. This is not a private entity. This is not a private sale. This is going to another governing body, which also has processes to follow and memberships that they have to be mindful of and look out for. So I also feel security moving that direction. I do have a few other comments, but those are a few things that I wrote down, and definitely supporting this motion. It's great for our city as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Miller.
Thank you. So I'm not in favor of the motion, and I'm more comfortable with going with a 5-year lease like we do with some other organizations in what they do. I do believe that public consultation has not been done properly. And as before, this has come before us a long time ago for about, I would say, 6-7 years. And it's a city asset. And I'm really not in favor of selling city assets. I'm up for a lease for 5 years and see how it goes from there. We're still struggling a little bit about, we did have another sale of property at Parkland Hall. Things were promised to Ward 1 and the residents down in the West Flat. Nothing has really progressed in that. I know I'm off topic, sorry about that, but it's about a lot of things here. And we need to progress more. I do appreciate the Grand Council and the Community Cares Kitchen and what they're doing in the Union Center. They're doing an absolute wonderful job in there. And yes, government to government is important. Nobody has to talk to me about reconciliation. I am of Métis ancestry, so I'm there. And I just think that we need to progress in a 5-year lease. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Lots to say still. Appreciate everybody's comments. Number one, public consultation starts now. This is a land agreement, and public consultation cannot occur prior to a land agreement. The negotiations of the sale of the price would be skewed. So public consultation before the final decision, it's today, and people have an opportunity to voice their opinions on this, and we respect their opinion. And thank you for the seniors that came out today to express their concerns and show us that there's some concerns. But we all want the seniors protected. Everybody in this room who's going to vote tonight want the seniors protected. Everybody. And there isn't a person that votes in favor of this that don't want the protection for the seniors. We want you to stay. We want you to feel welcome. And this agreement allows for that. It really is rock solid, which is good. It's a positive way to move forward in the community. This is a positive agreement in general. We are not utilizing this building to the full potential. And here we have an organization, a government, that wants to take over, want to run their programs which will give them more room to run their programs. They can bring all kinds of different options into the Margot Fournier. They can help the people right now that are having concerns in society, that maybe are sitting on the grass of the Margot Fournier, that nobody's really taking care of them. When this transaction, if this transaction occurs, they're going to be right there. Hey, welcome. Let's help you. Maybe we can get you into one of our programs. Come, we can assist you. They're right there. And that's a positive thing. It's a really positive opportunity for our community. And I just want to tell you a little story I heard from a young Indigenous guy I met probably a month ago, maybe. He relayed a story that 10 years ago or so, he didn't know what he was going to do in his life. And he looked up Urban Services, and Urban Services worked with him, and he took a program, a mining and oil and gas program. And it changed his life completely. He went out into the Alberta, he worked 10 years in Alberta because of the program that he took from Urban Services and Jeff's unit. And he said, and now he's actually a counselor of Montreal Lake, and he's doing well. And those are just some of the positive stories that we don't hear on a regular basis that Urban Services in Prince Albert do offer, and lots of services that the PAGC do offer in the city that move our city in a positive fashion. And they want to work with the seniors. And I can't wait until after this meeting when Jeff makes himself available out here and says, come and talk to me, because he's the most approachable individual I've met. And that's good for the seniors that are in this room. And I really have no concerns moving forward with this agreement. And a big reason is Jeff's the Director of Urban Services and will be working firsthand with you. So I did want to mention that. I do want to talk about as well Parkland, because I know there's some rumors about Parkland Hall.
Excuse me, we just want to stay on the agenda item, which is the Margot Fournier.
Absolutely,
point.
absolutely. And part of the things that the PAGC can do in their facilities, the rumors, if I can't talk about it today, please talk to me afterwards, because it's been very positive working with youth. And that's important for our city as well. And the sale of the Parkland Hall,
Thank
which
you,
was raised
Councillor
earlier
Edwards,
tonight.
for
So please talk, no problem.
Making yourself available.
Yes, so the building is underutilized right now. There's staff safety concerns in there, which is a reason that we're just not utilizing the building. So the staff in and out, there's traffic that isn't coming and going, and this will now have the traffic coming and going, and that's important. I support this motion wholeheartedly. It's the right move for the community. I appreciate Al Descharme and Chief Hardlot coming in, and Jeff Despens, really appreciate you in attendance, and all the seniors that came in. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Grodnick.
Thank you for allowing me to speak again. Just two quick things. This is a city asset being underutilized. And yes, it would be nice if the city could do all of these programs in that and use that facility to have life skill programs, et cetera, and deal with all of the necessary programs that are needed in the city. We just can't afford it as a city. And as a partner, Prince Albert Grand Council will add all of those necessary programs. And you know, as a history guy, the thing I like about this too is this is going to become the gathering place. Prince Albert, and pardon my Cree, Kistapanonic, was the gathering place. It was the place where people gathered, First Nations people gathered for 10,000 years. And now this is going to become a downtown gathering place where not only First Nations, but other people are going to be welcomed. I will be welcomed as a Polish, Ukrainian, Canadian into that facility and use the gymnasium, God help us, but anyways, if I did, but, you know, I would be welcome to do that. And that's what's neat about this is going to be a facility that is just gonna enhance our downtown and enhance our community, and I think, the seniors and that are here tonight in the senior center will be maintained, and once we see it in operation, everybody will feel a lot better about the use of that building rather than how it is right now. So, thank you again.
Thank you, Councillor. Time for the vote. The vote is now open. The vote carries. Certainly. Thank you very much for the reminder. So we're moving on to a rather lengthy agenda, so we'll just give you a few minutes to leave if you wish, but you're very welcome to stay. And thank you for coming. So thank you so much. We always like. Just a couple minutes. We're not recessing. If people can please exit the gallery, we'll get moving on our lengthy agenda. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on to item 7.1, a PowerPoint presentation by our operations manager, Jeff De Silva. We just have to wait 1 second. Okay, we are ready to go. Go ahead, manager.
They can watch it on YouTube. Good afternoon, Deputy Mayor and City Council. I'm happy to present today our snow report. So after a long and snowy winter, and just as we're wrapping up our spring street sweeping, we've had a chance to look back and reflect on the previous winter maintenance season, following up on various requests for information and review for the city's winter maintenance program. Specifically, Public Works was asked to review efficiencies and challenges faced by the department, look into calls and requests for service, as well as review snow and ice control policy. I should note this is a pretty long presentation, so I'll probably go over my 5-minute time cap, but with that in mind, I'd ask that you keep all of your questions to the end. I'll more than happy to come back and talk about any specific item afterwards. So first we'll go through some important background information on the, oops, let me keep up with my presentation. Okay. First, we'll go through some important background information about the Roadways Division, its responsibilities, our roads and the priority system that we have in place. We'll talk about the snow lifts and the city's snow dumps, sort of a review and a recap of winter 2021-22, and then end off with a discussion about roadways resourcing, followed by an opportunity for discussions and questions. So the city's roadways division within the Department of Public Works runs with 14 full-time staff, including 1 foreman, 9 truck drivers, equipment operators, and 4 equipment operators, and of course the manager. It's worth noting that these 13 operators operate a winter maintenance fleet of 22 vehicles. So at any given time, we'd have probably about 10 pieces of equipment sitting idle, depending on the nature of the ongoing operations. Just as a comparison, as part of our review for this, we reached out to the city of Lloydminster. I've got some information on their operating division. So as a comparison, Lloydminster, with a population of about 31,400, operates a roadway staff of 18. So now here's our roadways division equipment. We've got 3 graders, 3 sanding trucks, 1 sander plow truck, 7 trucks, either single or tandem axle, used for hauling, 1 loader-mounted snow blower, 5 loaders, either used as chase loaders for loading sand and salt, or for operating snow blowers, 2 flasher trucks, as well as a backup snow blower. So what's the roadways division responsible for? The roadways division is responsible for snow and ice maintenance on all city roadways. They're also responsible for snow removal on all city-owned paid parking lots, as well as downtown snow removal. This just contrasts to Community Services Parks Division, which covers snow removal at city-owned or city-run parking facilities, as well as select sidewalks, trails, and pathways. Here's the city road inventory. We've broken it out by priority. So priority 1 is 41 kilometers, priority 2 at 38, priority 3, which is the downtown pad bid, covers 3 kilometers, and priority 4 is the largest, which is mostly residential, covering 203 kilometers. So that brings us, of course, to our snow priority system. So we do snow clearing based on a priority system. The general basis behind that is that we maintain access around the city for emergency vehicles as well as for maintenance vehicles. And then as we progress down the list, we expand the snow clearing out to the collectors, downtown, and to residentials. It's worth noting that within our policy, both priority 3 and priority 4 are done on the discretion ultimately of the Public Works Director or his designate or their designate. So the practice for the downtown snow removal has been to do snow removal once the snowpack basically gets to a level that starts causing access problems to downtown. Similarly for residential, the first snowfall doesn't always generate a snow clearing. What we end up with is a situation in residentials, particularly in cul-de-sacs, where As we do snow clearing, we start taking up parking space, we start occupying narrowing up the roads. So there's a management and a bit of a call that's made to try to manage and maintain that different, or the interplay between taking up space on the roads, but also maintaining a clean driving surface. That brings us to snow lifts. Apologize. Can't turn my page here. So snow lifting is traditionally only completed in a few spots around the city. Of course, the downtown core is snow lifts only. So when we do snow maintenance, or winter maintenance downtown, we have no room to store snow downtown. That means we come in, we lift it, and we remove it. It gets taken out to the snow dumps. We also do snow lifting around the city in certain areas with either narrow road intersections or narrow roadways, as well as seasonally to deal with known runoff problems. So anywhere along the hills, we'll tend to try to get in there to lift that snow, because fast snow melt in the spring can cause snow or water pooling problems downhill. Snow lifts in the central business district. Of course, being that it's a sort of a core busy central area, we try to get those done on weekends. And they're done either in the evenings overnight to avoid parked cars, or early Sunday mornings, basically to avoid the operating hours of a lot of the businesses down there. We also do it on the weekends, because if we're doing an overnight shift, we have to allow a certain amount of time between the last regular operation before putting staff onto an overnighter, and then again to get them back onto a regular schedule. Snow dumps and our 100 acres of snow. So, City Council might have seen the video that was put out on Facebook and through communications, just sort of showing city and the residents that the 100 acres of snow that we accumulated throughout the winter. So typically, the city operates 2 snow dumps, one location north of the river, and then one at the southwest of the city near the Alfred Jenkins Fieldhouse. These snow dumps are open to public and contractors to deposit snow without any charge, and they're maintained by the city. But I would stress that they're maintained for city use, not specifically for contractor use. So contractors do use it, but it is not an item that the city goes in to maintain specifically to provide and give access. This does, of course, represent a benefit to the city as a whole, as a lot of businesses require snow removal throughout the winter to maintain access to their businesses. In the past, in this past winter, of course, as city snow dumps filled up really fast, Roadways created 2 additional snow dumps, one north of the city, or one north of the river, and then one in the southeast, that were limited to city access only, simply because the public snow dumps were filling up really quickly, and just even maintaining it was something that was beyond sort of the capacity of the Roadways division to keep up with and also continue on with operations. As I referenced early on, this year we estimate we filled up about 100 acres of snow, or 100 acres with snow. It's difficult to estimate exactly how much we would use on a typical year, though it'd probably be likely in the order of 40 to 50 acres that we would fill up. So the winter of 2021 and 22. You may have seen this graphic. It was produced earlier in the year, basically illustrating that the winter we just had was certainly not a typical winter. We definitely saw an above average snow accumulation, which is estimated to be definitely the highest that was seen in the last number of years. winter also saw a high frequency of snowfalls, accumulating 4 to 6 inches of snow. What this ended up causing was a situation where the Roadways Division, as they worked through their priority list, was forced to go back and start basically over on the from priority 1, leaving off where they ended up, or picking up where they ended off once they get back down on the priority list. Of course, when we keep doing that, that snow accumulates in those areas that don't get addressed, and that slows down the further progress of our winter maintenance activities. There were also very few days above freezing to melt the accumulated snow. So in a typical winter, Prince Albert doesn't get Chinooks like, say, a Calgary, but we do get typically get warm days. What that does is it helps to reduce the snowpack on the roads and also reduce the windrows that we see, allowing for more storage of snow subsequently throughout the winter. So these large volumes of snow that were stored on the roadways, of course, led to narrowed streets and ultimately a deeper snowpack that Roadways was forced to leave on the road in order to not narrow off the roads beyond sort of the ability to pass an oncoming vehicle, I should say. Of course, leaving that deeper snowpack on the road did mean that once we finally did see warmer weather, residents ended up with deeper ruts on top of the narrower driving lanes. Big windrows also caused significant sightline issues at intersections and crosswalks, which of course required being addressed by the division. I would note that that was being addressed in areas that we likely had not seen that in recent memory. So Public Works also recorded a record number of requests for service. So we reviewed back over the last number of years and found that on average, roadways would account for about 1,250 annual requests for service. So these aren't calls, these are things that actually generate a request that gets sent out for investigation and review on the road. No. Rest assured. Many people do call. So the winter of 21 and 22, so that's from about the start of November to the end of March, saw approximately 1,460 requests for service. So of course this demanded a lot of time from both the foreman and the manager for review. So to get an idea tangibly of how much time maybe goes into this type of investigation, if the average actual request for service, which requires a visibly checking out the item on the road, takes maybe about 10 minutes of manager or foreman time, multiplied by 1,460, you get about 30 full days of time throughout the winter spent just looking at requests for service. Put that into actual business, like operating business days, that's 6 full weeks of foreman/manager time. That did pull a lot of resources off of other items, because as the snow accumulation built up, these requests built up, and then we ended up having to deal with items that were obvious, either safety or passage issues for residents. It's also worth noting that a lot of requests for service don't actually warrant a response from crews. Of course, all requests for services are investigated and looked at and responded where requested. But that is something that we did note. It's likely partly a disconnect between people's understanding of the snow policy and the conditions that they had on the road. On this side, we've got a compilation of statistics for the current fiscal year. So the Roadways Division has used up approximately 70% of its 2022 regular wages budget. Roadways has logged just over $115,000 in overtime. On snow management, the roadways fleet charges have come up to $468,000. You can see it, which is of course in excess of the budgeted amount, as well as hired equipment. So the year-to-date actual for snow management on the most recent update that I saw at very least is about $1.3 million versus the annual budgeted amount of $1.26 million. Keep in mind, we still have November and December. So the extremely high usage of roadways winter maintenance equipment wouldn't be a lie to say that it was felt by other departments, in particular the fleet division. So with roadways equipment running way more hours than normal, fleet recorded overtime, which isn't a typical item for fleet, because most of their work is done on a pretty scheduled, regimented routine. With the hours that were being put in to keep the equipment on the road and running between breakdowns and normal maintenance, this caused a lot of bumps in maintenance for other departments and divisions. Of course, fleet always maintained all emergency vehicles, all of the core functions, but a lot of prep work for seasonal changeover was delayed. Also in particular for keeping the snowblower and its backup operating. So fleet with a staff of 5, which hasn't grown over the years, while the total size of the city's fleet has grown. The current staffing for fleet was overwhelmed during the winter season. It's also worth noting that up at the Municipal Service Center, 8 out of the 15 bays that are fleet bays for maintenance do get occupied during the winter for roadways equipment. This is your graders, your sanders, all the items that need to get put back out on the road the next morning, first thing. They're kept in those bays at night. So that causes a lot of juggling for fleet in terms of doing work and maintenance on items, but then having to pull it out before the end of the day in order to get equipment back in to store it overnight. MSC also only has 1 wash bay, so all equipment that comes into the Municipal Service Center for maintenance does require washing so that it can actually get properly inspected and maintained. Now with the winter we just had, you had backups of equipment that needed to get in for regular maintenance. This takes up a lot of time for the operations because their staff are the ones who are bringing the equipment, washing it down, and then it delays getting the equipment into the service bays. So now we did get a number of questions throughout the winter. What resources do you have, and what resources could help for the type of winter we just had, as well as just generally for the division. So as I mentioned earlier, we're operating with 14 full-time staff. This is fewer than at least one comparable that we reached out to. So the resourcing that we would look at first as sort of a first priority would be just staff. So additional staff would allow for better usage of the existing fleet. As I noted, there's 22 pieces of equipment and 13 staff operating it. This means that equipment sits idle even when we're fully staffed up and have everybody out. It's also worth noting that when we have more equipment that's under our staff's control, we can better leverage contractors. You'll note the grader item further down. But effectively, when we have a staff integrator, that gives us the ability to have a contractor integrator following them. We don't have great contractors that go out for the most part and do work on their own. They're always under the direction of staff or the foreman. It also, additional staff, of course, would also cover for sick time, vacation, and long-term illness, which was something that we did have to deal with this past winter as well. So, in kind of a list of priorities, so priority 1 for items on roadways staffing would be the addition of a foreman 2, as well as an additional truck driver equipment operator. Again, as mentioned, this would help expand the city's usage of its fleet, also help leverage the use of contractors, as well as having the foreman 2 gives the ability of the division to have to still have oversight and supervision of crews while the foreman 3 as well as the manager are able to address and review a lot of requests for service. Priority 2 is an expansion of the grader capacity within the roadways division. So we currently operate 3 graders, though graders work best in pairs. So for a normal operation, we'll have one team out as well as a lone grader going to do work. The addition of an extra grader would allow us to have at least put out two teams onto the roads to better address conditions. As I mentioned in the report, what Roadways ends up into is a situation where immediately following a snowfall, our hired equipment list is usually busy doing private contracts that these contractors hold. So unfortunately, when we need them the most is when they're the least available. And then as time goes on, we're able to gather up more equipment as they've gone through their lists. So the addition of an extra grader, as well as 2 chase loaders would at least greatly improve the city's initial response. And then also once we had a full complement of contractors available, we'd be able to put out up to 8 graders on the road. The capital costs, estimated operating charges, and labor costs, of course, are all up on the screen. Priority 3 deals with the concerns expressed by many residents, which came through loud and clear from many councillors, which of course are narrowed roadways. Really, the only way to address this is to lift the snow. So Roadways' suggestion of how that would be dealt with would be a dedicated snow lift crew. This would require a dedicated snow blower, as well as a loader and trucking available to spend time directly with that crew as it moves around the city. We do note, of course, that this would have greatly improved the city's ability to deal with narrow roads in a winter like the winter we just had. In a more typical winter, this would be a service improvement generally to the city of Prince Albert, as the crew would then continue to lift windrows, and this would go well beyond just keeping the roads from going narrow. Again, the capital costs, estimated equipment charges, and labor costs are up on the screen. Finally, a citywide snow lift. This was brought to our attention by a resident that did come through a city councillor, that there is at least one other city that does do a complete citywide snow lift annually. This is the city of Lloydminster. Again, as I mentioned, we reached out to them just to find out some of their information and details of how they go about this. This is largely done by contractors with minimal city staff in Lloydminster. It's usually done near the end of January and lasts about 3 to 4 weeks. The city of Lloydminster earmarks about $1 million annually, but we did get report that in this last season, it did probably come in closer to about $1.6 million. Lloydminster was also able to report that they have, due to the nature of their local economy and industry, In the wintertime, there's a lot of equipment available because during the summer, a lot of the equipment is servicing oil and gas. So in the wintertime, they do have contractors available that we likely don't have in the city here. So they do put this out as an annual tender. If the city of Prince Albert were to consider something similar, we would anticipate we would have to put together a call and a tender, and we would probably be reaching contractors, certainly locally, but also from other cities, since we'd be competing again with all the private snow clearing contractors locally in town. So now a few of sort of the lessons learned that Roadways took away. This season, with the new foreman and manager, we were able to make a bit of a change earlier in the season, which we did notice did pay some dividends throughout the year. And that was grading the arterials and collectors wider than normal. We were able to keep that pushed out and push it further earlier in the season, which meant that we didn't have to go in and dig into really big frozen snowbanks late in the season to get that extra space. Snow blowing into open spaces. So again, this is something that wasn't really done in the past. But whenever we have an open field, an open area, rather than trying to windrow it and causing further problems with blowing snow, especially next to open fields, the use of the snow blower to push that snow out definitely paid dividends. And I would anticipate that we would probably do that a lot more in the coming year, especially with the Marquis Road, 10th Avenue expansion, that type of area. And finally, this past season made it pretty clear that the city's policies and bylaws are, A, not widely known by residents, and that perhaps their residents' expectations don't align with the current policies or the budget prescriptions from council. So this lesson is carried through and reflected in our recommendation that administration bring forward a report with suggestions for updating the snow and ice control policy.
Okay, thank you. Questions for the presenter, Mayor Dion?
I loved it, even though it was way too long. It's going to affect our budget. So I think in the agenda review, I'm going to ask the city manager in the future, when they say presentations, that they contact the person and say how long your presentation is going to be. I have no problem with the length of his presentation, but then at the agenda review, we would have knocked off a few more like we did last time, so we're not here. So I do appreciate it. Now, questions for the presenter. Okay, but some of these problems I think that you had up there, could they not be solved simply? Like you said, the wash bay, for example, they're lined up to get in there. Well, why would we not have a two-man crew on in the evenings during this period of time to bring the equipment in and wash them? So then they're all lined up at the service bays in the morning instead of keeping the mechanics, who are the highest paid in those buildings, waiting for equipments to be washed. That's just a thought. Hey, if that's a problem that they're lined up, let's put two people on in the evening to prep the equipment, and then they could even park them in the stalls that they belong. So that's a solution. I was surprised you asked for another grader, but you didn't ask for another grader operator.
No.
So.
It's in there.
Oh, it's there?
Yeah, no, sorry, it is. There's the operators and
Well,
the
$3 million
labor and
with
works.
equipment and $3 million of payroll, I agree with you, would fix all our problems, but we don't have that. So I do appreciate very much, just so you know, what your department did this winter. I do, I'm one of the few probably, that I think you did a great job considering that the constant snowfall, the continuous snowfall, and the challenges that we had in moving the snow. My other comment is, though, should we not have the two snow dumps, I'm going to go back to the snow dumps, that are just restricted to us, and then maybe have another one somewhere else that's still restricted for us and contractors? Because the only reason that I say that is contractors get paid to remove the snow off private property, and they dump it to us, and I don't even think they pay for any of the costs when we have to get a cat or equipment in there to pile it. So it's a benefit, a profitable benefit for them. So I would just like you to consider in the future, maybe ask Saskatoon or other cities how they do it. I do know in Saskatoon their snow dump, the only one that I'm aware of that I've watched is the one by the new bus terminal. That's clearly signed only city snow, only for them. And I think that's important because I have no problem supplying a spot for commercial private haulers, but I do also believe they should also pay for the cost of the cat to stack it and to move it, because we're taking snow that they're charging people to remove. So those are my comments, and otherwise, great presentation, great. And thank you for all the work you did and to your staff. And if you could pass that on to your staff too, right, to the operators, that I did appreciate what they did in this snowfall year.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Councillor Zerkowski.
Jeff, thanks for your presentation. A few questions, if I may, and thanks for being here past 6. Priority 1, is Marquis priority 1, Marquis Road?
Yeah.
Because I didn't see it on the map. Can you go back to the map, please? Is that possible?
You wouldn't see the extension on the map,
Okay.
because that's, again, the snow and ice control policy, as per our recommendation, needs an update. That also then, of course, includes the extension. Marquis Road is a priority one, of course.
Okay, thank you.
And operationally, through the season it was.
Okay, thank you. I'm curious, now that we've survived that winter season, as we look in the rearview mirror, I'm curious what that philosophy, because I don't think it was in the policy, of leaving a snow pack and narrowing the streets. Looking back now, how did we like that? How did that work for us? How did it work for the residents? What do you think of that now?
Really, it was kind of a pick two bad options.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, we could clear it down to the pavement, but we would have been limiting now the road probably to one driving lane. Or we could leave it thicker, try to maintain a bit more of the driving lane. Again, that would still be very narrow. Like it would have been quite narrow. So you'd still be getting, complaints about a narrow street, but then once you had a warm weather, then it would have broken through and you'd have ruts that were well in exceedance of people's ability to pass through.
To carry that one step further, the residents would say, well, when the street becomes narrow, take the roads away. The result of that would have been what?
Ultimately, we wouldn't have had the time.
Okay.
So again, if we did this, if we just dedicated snowblower time, we would have been pulling equipment operators off of priority 1s, priority 2s, priority 3s, priority 4s. You wouldn't have been able to make a dent in the overall snow, windrow situation across the city as a whole. Would have also likely, you'd end up with some priority challenges there to assess narrowness of roads. That's something that's not really contemplated in the policy currently, which is why, we did present a dedicated snow lift crew. Would be really the only way to address that.
So if resources were there, taking those windrows away, widening the streets is a better option than leaving the snowpack and leaving the streets narrow.
Yes, with the resources, certainly.
So I love this conversation because I think what we're getting at, maybe we're getting at it backwards, but it's what's the level of service the public expect? And what's the level of service the elected expect? And I think somehow we need to get there, have that conversation and say to the department, this is what we expect. Put a plan together, come to us with the costs, and then we move forward or we don't. And then that's on us, I think, because we've certainly heard it from the public. But I think rather than the department getting beat up all the time, what's the level of service the elected folks expect, budget for it, ensure that it happens through the department? And if not, because that would certainly stop the nagging and the calls from the elected, right? And the overreaction sometimes from the department, which I think is not fair for anybody. So I'm trying to see this through the eyes of what impact will this have for our residents? And when I see option 2 or priority 2 that you outlined, which I think was the windrows, you're looking for?
That was the graders.
That's priority, second priority.
Number 3 was the dedicated snow lift crew, so a snow blower.
Okay. So I'm looking at those priority 2 and priority 3. There's a lot of data and numbers there, but what I don't see is how it will improve the lives of our residents.
Yep.
I think after going through this winter now, priority 3 talks about resources to remove, lift and remove snow piled in windrows. People get that. They don't want to go through that again. Is this what it's going to take? Okay, let's have that discussion. So I can get my head around that. Again, level of service conversation, right? But in priority 2, the addition of a foreman 2 to oversee maintenance crews, I think there's a connection missed there that it's hard for me to advocate for, because I'm interested in having that conversation about, look, what level of service do we expect as elected? What are the level of service the residents expect? And then turn it over to the professionals to come up with a plan. But I can't, it's hard for me to advocate for priority 1 because I'm not quite sure what that means insofar as how it's going to affect my neighbor throughout the city.
Sure, well, that's a great point, and if you like, so the reason we prioritize them in that way is that we identified that there's a lot of equipment that just sits. We don't have the staffing to fully utilize our current fleet. So if you added priority 2 or the priority 3 items, we would still have equipment sitting. So that's the reason we put that as a priority 1 is to make better use of our current fleet before we add more equipment. We propose adding equipment with operators.
Right.
But then you're still pushing that wave of equipment that just sits idle.
Okay, that helps me out. What I'd like to be able to do is carry this conversation to the public over the next couple of months before budget and say, adding a foreman 2 and an additional truck driver and equipment operator will result in what for them, A, B, and C. And then we can have the conversation about the dollars. But, so I need some help there as we move forward.
Okay.
To see the value in that ask. If there's equipment sitting idle that we don't have the staff for, what's that equipment? And how is that equipment purposed to make an effective change for the neighborhoods? Can that make sense?
It does, yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that. When we buy equipment, do the folks that operate the equipment, are their input, are they chatted with, are they heard? And when we need to go buy new equipment of a different model, are they on that road trip to touch it, to feel it, to talk to people? Are they part of the conversation?
That's a great question. Yes, they are.
Good.
And I've had the benefit of being able to sit through those conversations as well.
Yeah,
So,
I appreciate that because it's never been like, it hasn't been like that in the past, years ago, so I appreciate that. Can you talk a little bit about what our relationship is to the private contractors and how that supplements what the city does, some of the challenges there, and maybe some of the deficits and problems when we pick up the phone? Insofar as the contractors, as far as human resources and the equipment?
so you mean the contractors specifically on the hired equipment list?
Yes.
Okay. So the benefits, of course, of the contractors is that we are able to access equipment that we don't need we don't need during normal operations. Again, as I mentioned in the presentation, that leverages our ability to address and maintain winter conditions well beyond what we're, typically staffed for. Again, one of the downsides of using the equipment off of that list is that these contractors can't rely on the city as a steady source of income because we're not going to be hiring them on a weekly or a monthly basis. So they have private contracts to do snow removal for various businesses or residents around the city. Unfortunately, their snow removal needs tend to align with the city's snow removal needs. So when we get a big snowfall, they're being called to go clear out in Cornerstone or in the mall district, et cetera.
Right.
That means that we have limited access to equipment for the first for the first window of time once we have a snow event. So we're operating off of only city staff and city equipment. Not completely, but almost all of our list gets tied up on private contracts.
Okay.
Over time, we get access to that equipment, and then we can build up our response to the event.
Over time, okay. Is it fair to say that when a street gets plowed, and a windrow is left in front of a resident, 92% chance that it's going to be a private contractor because they're not equipped with gates? Or has that changed over the last couple of years?
Do they have gates?
There's only one.
So there's only one private contractor that has a gate.
Yeah.
But we do always follow, we're always following the chase loaders.
For
So
sure.
we do all, like, if it's missed purely because it was just an item that got missed, but, so we are always following.
I think it's part of the conversation by all of us to say, you know, when you send me the picture of a grader going down a residential street and they're blocking your driveway, the name on the grader does not say City of Prince Albert.
Sure.
So I think that's important to conversation. People don't realize the grader's coming, it's City of PA, they block my driveway, people set their hair on fire.
Yeah.
It's not the City of PA grader, it's a private contractor because of the demands of the lack of resources that you mentioned. So I
Right.
think it's an awareness piece with the city. How dependent are you with other departments in the city? The relationship with community services or the resources sucked out of community services because of the demand and work can't get done there? I think it's part of the conversation when it comes to what's the level of expectation.
I think between Public Works and Community Services, you wouldn't see a really big draw or pull across, largely because a lot of their equipment is purposed for pathways and for smaller stuff. But Public Works does draw within Public Works for a lot of equipment. So in the past season, we saw a lot of use of, the big loader from the landfill to push up snow dumps. Also their backup loader to do back lanes, as well as operators. So we had across Public Works, we had we had pretty much all hands that were available at times, coming in to help with the winter maintenance. Of course, you know, as you would probably guess, that does start to cause problems for other Public Works divisions in terms of, you know, at the landfill specifically for, you know, moving things around. Like that loader at the landfill moves constantly throughout the day. It's always pushing garbage, spreading garbage, going to the tree pile, moving to the sand pile, moving to the yard waste. So it's moved around the landfill continuously. So they notice when it's gone.
Yeah. Okay, last two questions, and so thanks, patience for my colleagues. Last two ones. Why is it that we don't charge a permit for private folks that clear snow? I understand you kind of alluded to it, and the snow dump, we maintain give them access, and I believe there's actually some big name contractors where when they can, they'll come with a front end loader and dump down that snow. But for the medium-sized contractor who's making money, why is it that city can't recoup some of that cost by charging a $100 permit? Help me with that.
That's a great question, and it's something that we did, like we've batted that around a lot in the department.
Okay.
Ultimately, what we have is an informal way of dealing with it, and that's largely because of our span of reach. How would we enforce who's dumping? Do we want to have people dedicated to, you know, watching or patrolling the snow dump? A lot of contractors do their lifting at night as well. So it wouldn't be practical to close the snow dumps for the night when we couldn't have staff available. Also, the practicality of maintaining or keeping somebody around in the nighttime.
Perfect. Unintended consequences. Perfect. Thank you for that. You've sort of alluded to on one of the priority options here, what you would do with the staff in the summer. Crack sealing, backlaying maintenance, sidewalk repairs as well. That's another thing moving forward in this conversation. I'd like to see that fleshed out to help me advocate for the resources that you're asking for.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Miller.
Thank you. So I was just wondering about, let me see, where am I gonna start here? Placement of snow in park zone areas, like park, any kind of open space, I suppose we'll call it, would be a really good idea for, especially for bus routes. I know that when you go down 13th Street, I'm not, for Ward 2 as well, there's a few pocket parks, or we'll call them, and you can just shove the snow into there. So, would you consider doing that for the whole entire street or just that portion of the roadway?
Are you talking about specifically about, say using the snow blower to push
Yeah.
snow out?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really only an option that's available when there's an open space right next to the road. You couldn't really blow that snow forward and keep pushing that forward, really more than, a few meters or yards down the road type of thing.
Right, and so there's a few areas in our city that don't have sidewalks, so, and I noticed that some graders think that there's sidewalks there and some think that there's not. So in a few of our streets, maybe they could push it towards the side more.
No, that's a good point. That's an opportunity to make sure that staff know where they're able to actually occupy a little more room than they would be otherwise.
Right, and have you ever considered of going into a later shift with everybody or earlier morning shift throughout the whole entire city?
That's a great question. It is something that I know has come up from council in the past, and it's something that we've talked about internally as well. That presents a number of challenges. So one of the challenges is availability of mechanics. So a lot of our equipment, I'm thinking particularly for the snow blower, even the graders, they're high wear equipment. So if we were to set a permanent shift off of a standard operating times, we would lose that ability to get maintenance done quickly on our equipment. So if there's active snow maintenance going on, fleet will prioritize the repair and resumption of operation of that equipment. But that really can only happen during fleet operating hours. So that's one item. Also, a lot of our calls and requests come during the day.
Yeah.
So we would still have to keep a good maintenance crew contingent during the day. Now, with only 14 staff, we don't have enough staff to actually separate out and have sort of two full standalone crews that would be able to sort of do any of the items that we would hope to deal with for regular maintenance. So right now, during normal winter maintenance operations, if we're on priority ones, we'll also have some staff that are dealing with, pop-up calls around the city. If something comes in that is in excess of what they can deal with, and say it's an emergency or it's, a critical item, we can quickly pull people off of one item, like the priority ones, to address that specific thing, and then get back right away to our normal operations. If we separate, I guess what I'm trying to say is if we separated those two crews out, you wouldn't have enough staff available to adequately deal with service requests that come up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Head.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you, Jeff, for your report. It was very interesting to read, and I thought it was great for the public to see as well, kind of some of the operations and how we do business when it comes to snow removal. I do think that that's one of the worst costs that we here have to spend, or everybody spends in the city, because as you know, it comes and goes within months. But it is important that we address it, and as we see in the reports, record amounts. Interesting enough, 1,460 calls, requests. I know I've been a part of some of those requests as well, along as others in this room. But it just goes to show some of the needs in our community and definitely some of the desires of our residents when it comes to snow removal on their streets, and where would they land on our priority list. I did have to refer a lot to the policy and the bylaws contained within the city here, and I know I've talked to the Roadways manager quite a bit about some of the application of that policy. So I think we should be looking at changing some of those, especially when it comes around chase loaders, and because as I understand, it's definitely expected that we do that, but the policy doesn't speak to it. But it's a practice that we've been maintaining for years, and so maybe we need adjustments here in this room to do that. But I did get a lot of comments about asking about the evening. Why are we working? And that's it's interesting to hear that, because yes, it's some of the limits we have with our maintenance, our mechanics, who are a vital operation to this snow removal, because we have a lot of moving parts. And when I go into their shop, those bays every one of them are full. So they're always being utilized. Their days are probably go very fast by the amount of work that they have in front of them always. So maybe that's something we need to address as well. If we're going to expand our fleets or, definitely prioritize this work in the winter, which I know you guys have, and definitely been working quite diligently with the residents and ourselves here, trying to address all concerns that come up. I think it's interesting to see that dumping fees. I agree, we should be having access, and I like to hear that there is some limitations to the dumping fees, having to expand it this year. Surprised that we're not actually charging, because we're piling up or moving this snow around. It's definitely priority for us to get our snow removed and or placed in those convenient areas of the city. So I look at other cities and they have them out of town and other things, but that's something we should be looking at as well. Since it's policy, hang on. And so looking at the priorities that you had set, it was really helpful to kind of see some of the shortfalls that we have. We have an abundant, like 22 pieces of equipment you highlighted, but we don't have enough staff. And I think looking at the priorities, it's great if we expand our greater options, but we're still going to have equipment sitting. It's great if we look at a priority 3 around a snow lift, but we're still going to have equipment sitting. So I think looking at the staffing component is vital to ensure that all pieces are being utilized. But that also puts a strain, as the report would kind of indicate, on mechanics as well, and some of the work that they do. But definitely looking at, I've been asked, why doesn't the city just lift the whole city? Well, hearing that in this report, $1 million just for that alone, and hearing 1.2 approximately is where we're at for our annual budget. I mean, that's almost doubling what we're willing to pay. So I think maybe not an option. But looking at the priorities, I think staffing is one where I'd lean towards, and definitely I think it would be the most value for us here. So thank you for your report, and thank you for all the work that your department does. And I suspect, us looking at this now is crucial coming into the winter months again. So thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I agree with Councillor Head that I think some of the things we need to look at in the room. Ruts, 6 inches. Boy, the vehicles, I think, are going to be smaller and smaller if fuel economy goes, and 6 inches, well, if you look at my car, just about buries my wheel. So I just think the ruts were a major issue this year, and it damaged many vehicles across the city. And so somehow, some way, I think we need to do better on that aspect of things, because boy, there was a lot of people bouncing around, and we're fortunate someone didn't get seriously hurt. Another issue I see is vehicles not moving, and I know we're ticketing them, but I don't think we're towing them. And I don't know why. I think that you've signed it so we could phone a towing company or get our own truck or whatever it is and say, listen, vehicles will be towed by 7 a.m. or earlier. Our work is starting at 5, so the towing company by 3 a.m. could be out moving a block at a time. And do they move them right to a compound? Not necessarily. Maybe they move them to a road where it's not signed. But it costs money when people phone us again and say, hey, there was a car parked, now there's a big block of snow, and it looks terrible, and we often return to remove that, which is expensive. So I think we really need to look at that towing option. I know people in the public don't necessarily want to hear it, but we also are paying for that return to go get that machine back there. I don't know whether there's a solution to this, but I heard lots of it this year. We paid good money to remove the snow in front of our house, and the city comes along and buries our area. I don't know whether there's a solution to that. I don't know. Maybe you get a response from you on that.
Yeah, we've noticed that as well. It's certainly very unfortunate, because we do see that it happens, and we know that there are areas around the city where neighbors have gotten together, or just individuals have opted to have a contractor come and remove snow. But once we get kicked back into gear because of a snowfall, we push it to the side like we do all the rest.
Yeah, it's tough.
And the timing, I mean, like most things, if I was doing it, yeah, it would snow the next day. That's the kind of timing that we encounter frequently enough.
Right, right. Okay, that one's a tough one. 12 inches across driveways that with the chase loader. I just don't think that that's acceptable. And with the seniors that we want to have stay in their house, they can't move that.
Yeah, if I may comment on, we never purposely leave a 12-inch snow ridge. We do get calls on snow ridges. If there's something that's missed, typically it's because the chase loader hasn't arrived yet. The next one is maybe just human error. It was, on one side of the driveway, it's, an inch deep. On the other side of the driveway, it's 8 inches deep. Those types of things.
Yes.
We do go in and we make some reasonable calls to try to make sure that, let's say that my car could go through it. And for the most part, that's ultimately what we're leaving. Again, I think that speaks to the recommendation to revisit that policy, to get something that I think everybody can agree to in terms of city council, and then have that larger conversation with residents, to pick something that's reasonable, that we know we can operationally achieve, but then it can also be defended.
For sure. I certainly appreciate the comments too, because it is often the chase loader hasn't been there yet, for sure.
Yes.
And whether we need to put that out in the public, be patient, chase loader was out there, we'll get there within 2 or 3 hours after the grader has been by. I think that might be something important, because we get lots of calls on that. I agree, some colleagues have said, what level of service does the community want? Maybe we need to do a questionnaire here. Here's the level of service you can have. We can add more staff for $150,000 plus with priority 1. We could do priority 3, including priority 1, for about $650,000 annually, which is about $35 a month base tax on everybody's tax bill. So those things, maybe that's what we need to put out. Here's the services we can offer as is. Here it is. This is the cost to you. Are you prepared to pay it? I certainly wouldn't support a motion that was just put on the mill rate. It has to be as a base tax, but because everybody is benefiting from snow removal. And I'm thankful you added the city of Lloyd in there, because I do know that that's a comparison that I have heard. Snow removal expensive. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Ogrodnik.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you, Jeff, for your presentation. Very thorough presentation on snow. And we all know exactly where we're at now, and so hopefully the public does as well. Just a couple comments. My biggest complaint that I get is cul-de-sacs, and I wish we never built cul-de-sacs in the city of Prince Albert, and because we can't we can't clean them in a timely fashion, it seems, and so therefore, like, if we have 22 pieces of equipment and only 14 operators, maybe in our purchasing of equipment or in guaranteeing contracts with the private sector, we address cul-de-sacs. That's what my wish would be. If we're talking about what do councillors expect level of service, for me, it's the cul-de-sac. The other thing I had a resident ask me, and I don't know whether it's a good idea or a bad idea, but plowing, would it make a difference if we plowed all the snow to one side of the street in the residential areas 1 year, and then the next year plow it to the opposite side? Would that make a difference in the width of the road? I know the year that you get it on your side, you wouldn't be happy, I don't think, but then the next year you'd have nice parking on your side. And so that I don't know, have you ever thought about that? And is it a good idea or not a good idea?
It's definitely been brought up before. I'm a little bit flat-footed on giving you an answer today. I mean, I think you would run into a whole host of problems, as you mentioned, would just be, picking the road, also then, scheduling it, making sure that the staff are aware of what's happening on what road. I'd note this year, we actually got a lot of calls from people, I wouldn't say a lot, but a number of calls that I noted where people were requesting that we didn't clear snow in front of their house. And again, you know, I put it to them is that we're offering a service based on the policy. We're not offering, you know, sort of a catered service to around the city. So it's certainly something that we could explore a little further, try to get a good built-out answer for you.
Yeah, that's fine. The other thing I'm glad that you brought up today was that in certain areas of the city, residents get together and have the snow lifted. I know in my ward, there's several streets that people do that, and I get calls of preferential treatment. Why, you know, what city employee lives on that street, or isn't that interesting that the councillor gets this done in front of his house and what have you. And I'm glad you brought that up, that it is residents that do that, and there is no preferential treatment for certain streets or for certain councillors in front of their house getting snow removed, and so that I appreciate your comments on that it's done based on a priority system and how it's done, and the fact that residents do that, get together and pay for snow removal in front of their place or on their street. So thank you for that. That's all I have to say. Thanks.
Councillor Head.
I'll move the recommendation.
Thank you. I do want to ask, could you add also, it says snow and ice control policy, but could we also add look at bylaw 9, 1992 and come with some recommendations? Thank you. Okay, with that, Councillor Zerkowski.
Thank you. One last question, if I may. Thank you for your patience. What are we missing? What's the operation side missing? What do you need insofar as towing those vehicles in the early morning?
So I think, I'm glad you brought that back up, because as you were discussing it, we've had conversations with that. I know that by policy, we can do it, but it hasn't been done in practice. Yeah. So it's not something that we've dug into over the last number of years.
And let me give me a chance to rephrase. What do you require, or will we require as a corporation to make that happen?
City Council.
Yeah, I know. Hi, I'm Jeff also. I know in this winter that they would tow when we did snow lifts, but they would ticket when we just plowed snow. But they also don't come out till 9 o'clock. So I guess what we need would be permission to have them out at the same time we go.
And they being whom?
The tickets and from their bylaw or.
So financial services,
exactly.
Bylaw,
Yeah.
not necessarily private tow truck contractor.
They would work or be available when we need.
Okay, thank you. So we don't necessarily have our own tow truck on staff?
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Dion?
I'm going to be very quick. When you look at the tow option, also look at for street. I've got more complaints from people that we sent street cleaners down to clean our streets and people didn't move their vehicles.
Out of
And
order.
so I think that's part of the snow removal.
Thank you. With that, let's move to vote. We have 4 more presentations after this. Let me find it. Ready to vote. The vote is now open. The vote is open. The vote is now closed. Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you very much. Next item. I think we have to, yeah, the media is here. And yes, we need to continue. We need to continue. So we will continue on with 7.2, landfill rate options, PowerPoint by Jeff De Silva. I am going to limit everyone to 5 minutes now. Thank you. Go ahead. Oh, we're waiting for the PowerPoint. Good. Go ahead.
Okay, good evening again, Deputy Mayor and Council. So presenting to you for the second time, this time on landfill rates. So last year, City Council adopted a new 5-year rate schedule based on a real cost model for long-term operation of the landfill, including future cells, long-term maintenance, and cell closures. At the time of adoption, Council also approved a motion for administration to bring forward a report to adopting a resident and non-resident rate structure. So in this presentation, I'll do my best to run through our findings, our suggestions, and our rationale behind those. So first, I'll talk through the rate structure investigation. I'm going to talk through some of the challenges with proof of residency, discuss our commercial haulers consultations, as well as try to outline some of the risks and the benefits the risks of a rate structure change, as well as the benefits that are available to city residents through the operation of the landfill. So the current fee structure is a member and non-member rate. It appears that this notion of membership was to build up the Waste Management Corporation, North Central Waste Management Corporation in membership list in size in order to maximize the benefits to the corporation members, of which the city receives a significant annual grant, budgeted at around $400,000. So the membership area covers all surrounding RMs, as well as towns, and generally covers most areas that would likely haul waste to the City of Prince Albert landfill. The non-member rates, if I mentioned it or not, are double what the member rates are, and currently set at $77 a ton for member, $150 a ton for non-member. We also found through our investigation that there's only 2 other municipalities that are currently charging resident and non-resident rates, and those are Moose Jaw and Melfort. So proof of residency is sort of one of the biggest administrative challenges, mainly because there's really no clear definition of who is and isn't a resident. We already deal with incidents of people with multiple residences. Also, there's no clear, there's inconsistencies in the SGI information on driver's licenses, which would make it basically impossible to prove whether or not somebody, just off of a quick glance at their driver's license, is a resident. Also, many residents don't have utility accounts with sanitation charges. So there's no one clear system that we could implement that would give you a very quick turnaround on who is a resident. Detailed checks at the landfill take valuable time. On peak days, we can see over 400 vehicles. And just doing some quick math, similar to the request for service for snow, taking 20 seconds to check each and every vehicle on a day with 400 vehicles could yield 2 hours of verification time at the gate, which should lead to impossibly long lineups. When we did ask the other municipalities, they reported that they either don't check, they just ask for basically an honor system, or that they'll accept virtually any piece of documentation or paper to suggest that the person is a resident. We also consulted with commercial haulers. They expressed concerns, A, to changing rates mid-year, B, their ability to, or the amount of time that they require to notify their customers, which is 90 days. They also expressed concerns about the ability to segregate loads based on resident and non-resident. A lot of their routes would cover in-city and out-of-city, so they have no real way of differentiating how much of that waste came from which portions of their routes. This causes problems with them in terms of being able to create financially feasible or economically viable routes, I suppose. We don't really run into the same problem, I should note, for members versus non-members, largely because of the distance that any non-member waste has to travel to get to the city. That generally seems to create their own economically viable routes for the waste haulers that do happen to go that far. So now the landfill customers, of course, our customers are made up of residents and non-residents, and it's not something that we currently track. Members versus non-members is tracked, so 94% of our waste comes from members. The remaining 6% that comes from non-members represents approximately $700,000 in revenue potential. So in considering a resident and non-resident rate, if you eliminated that rate, you're eliminating a significant portion of revenue for the landfill with no real good estimate on how much we would make up on a non-resident charge, because we don't know how much of our waste is coming from residents or non-residents. Alternatively, if we kept the three categories, it becomes practically impossible to identify, is this a member, is this a non-resident, or is this a resident? Again, just that creation of extra categories would lead to lineups at the gates and also make it virtually impossible for waste haulers. Additionally, adding a surcharge for non-residents has the concern of encouraging things like illegal dumping in the surrounding Nisbet Forest, which of course is cleaned up and by city staff and hauled to the landfill anyway. And also the use of backyard burning barrels, so in sort of in country settings. This waste ultimately would end up coming to the city anyway, but when it does come as burning barrel waste, it's basically just concentrated. So it has the potential to increase the concentration of the leachate forming potential items that come into the landfill, which sort of has an unintended consequence down the line, especially since the weight is less, so we're not actually charging properly for those items that would come in. High rates also, of course, risk creating a viable alternative for landfill customers, risking landfill operations revenue. So 47% of the material that's disposed at the landfill comes from the City of Prince Albert as an organization. That's either as curbside pickup, directly from various city departments, from city capital projects, either done corporately by the city or as contractors for the city, and for city events. So then I'll point out that our operations budget of $2.1 million, we're bringing in about half of the material that's managed and disposed of at the landfill directly. But that $2.1 million is being made up of only charges that are coming across the gate. So that's being paid for by the commercial haulers that bring in waste, either from businesses, from member communities, or non-member communities, and then or residents who are bringing garbage across as well. So this represents effectively a $1 million benefit to city residents and operations, of course distributed across the various operations that use the landfill. The landfill also does provide the 4 free passes, which allows for up to 150 kilograms of waste for anybody that has a sanitation charge on their utility bill. So in 2021, this represented a $104,000 benefit to city residences who used a total of 8,193 passes. The landfill operation also hosts the Household Hazardous Waste Day, which of course helps to divert materials that shouldn't end up at the landfill to more appropriate disposal sites. The landfill also does yard waste composting, tree and shrub disposal for community events, and of course all of that is paid for by fees that are charged across the scale.
Thank you.
Sorry, I took more time.
That's all right. The teacher in me wanted to do something different, but I realize I'm no longer that. Councillor Head.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you again, Jeff, for the really thorough report and the presentation. It's very helpful. It makes my decision easier, and so I'll move the recommendation of receiving this and filing it.
Thank you very much. Councillor Edwards?
Yeah, thank you for the report. I do agree with you. It was very thorough. Residents have a fee for waste management on their utility bill. How much is that?
2150, 1925, 1925.
$19.25 a month? So it was a great report, but there's something in there that I don't agree with. And
Sure.
it says on an annual basis, 40%, 47% is essentially free of charge. But we're paying for that,
So, yeah, I see what you're saying.
yeah. So the
The
my,
disposal side,
on the disposal side,
yes,
but we're paying for, the residents are paying to pick up
absolutely.
and dispose of. Okay, just wanted to make sure. My biggest thing with waste management and the landfill is that I don't want the city to bear the main cost of capital when we're using 50% of the dump, when residents are using 50% of the dump. So that's my main concern. And I know that members, I believe members are contributing to the capital side of things. Is that correct? Yes?
Yes.
Perfect. That's my main concern. I don't want our residents to bear the main cost because this is a regional dump and all the smaller dumps are closing, right? We know that. So that's my main concern. I think you're doing a wonderful job out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Zerkowski?
Landfill. Landfill. I just want to pause on that moment, or on that point, and make sure I understand what the numbers mean. 40% of the material disposed at the landfill is from the city of Prince Albert. What percentage of the new cell construction is borne by the city of Prince Albert?
So the cost is borne by the sanitation operation, which.
So is there a percentage there? How much of the new cell construction is paid for by the residents of Prince Albert?
That's a good question.
Okay.
I don't have a breakout that answers that immediately, other than the general statement that, like, the landfill operation
Yeah.
contributes largely towards the capital costs of the capital account within the land sanitation operation.
I'm trying to determine if this, because this is the phrase that I want to use, and I want to make sure I'm accurate. A, am I comparing apples to apples? And B, is it a fair comparison that if 40% of the materials disposed at the landfill comes from the city of Prince Albert, what percentage of the new cell construction is borne by the residents of the city of Prince Albert? So I don't need that now. My guess is that it had 3 digits in it, and the last 2 are zeros, but I wanted to confirm that, so it doesn't have to be now. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Cody?
Yeah, I have to apologize. I didn't read the report, and the reason was because I was out of the province since last Wednesday, and I never did get my iPad at the time, so I can't be very explicit here. But when I looked at your figures there, I noted you had some figures with regards to fees that were charged to citizens. I didn't see what I thought we did last year was charge $1,500 for someone who did bring in a cabin or something like that.
Demolition from outside
I
of
don't
the
see it
city.
in there. Is that in there?
It's not in the report or the presentation,
Okay.
but that is in the fee structure.
That
Yeah.
is in the fee structure?
Yeah.
Okay. I was just wondering if that had been missed, because I know last year we were pretty adamant that
Yes.
that we needed to have something in there with regards to people who are bringing cabins. They're knocking cabins down all the time, as you know, and other buildings, and resulting in the fact they come to our landfill. So, but it's in there, and that's good.
Correct, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mayor Dion? Sorry.
So I have a quick question. One of our haulers drives around the city, picks up commercial garbage from our residents' business, takes to the landfill. Then that same truck goes out into the RM, picks up a load of garbage, comes back into the landfill. Are they charged the same rate?
If it's picking up from a member area, they're charged the same rate, yes.
Just so it doesn't matter whether you live in the city limits or the corporate limits, the fee at the landfill is the same. That's our complaint. I pay for that cell, that $6.1 million cell. They don't. And that's why I want them charged a different rate. And that's why our residents think that's so unfair. And I think it's unfair, and I thought you'd at least nail the commercial guys, because where did you pick your load up? Well, from Birch Hills. Well, then you should pay. You know, where that's the issue that I have, and that's the issues the residents have to us, is we pay the capital costs. The majority of the cost is $6 million. That's what's killing them, is the capital cost, and then we let everybody in at the same rate as us.
Mayor?
And that's why people object
Would
to
it be all right if the director of Public Works answers? Yes, he is.
Thank you for that opportunity. I'm not sure, maybe there's a little bit of clarification that I can add to that. When a city garbage truck picks up from city residents who have the bins, it goes across the scale at no charge because it's already prepaid. You already paid on your utility bill $19.50 per month. It's like an exclusive membership. When a commercial hauler from the city of Prince Albert is picking up from businesses or apartments throughout the city, when they come across the scales, they pay. We give them, we pay, they have to pay. So the difference there is the residents of Prince Albert have already paid on their utility bill at the lowest rate possible. And all haulers that come across that scale, whether they're from Birch Hills or they're from north of the city or south of the city or right inside the city, they're paying. And that's what's paying for the operations of the landfill. It's the only budget that is self-sustaining. No tax dollars are spent on creating that extra cell. It's self-funding within the revenue that comes across the scale.
So does the commercial hauler, like say the restaurant, on their tax bill, the same as we do, we get a monthly fee. Do they get a monthly fee?
No. The city of Prince Albert picks up garbage, the green bins and the blue bins, only at residential homes up to 4 units on a property, so up to a fourplex. Anything above that, high-rise apartments, condos, restaurants, have to hire commercial haulers to pick up their garbage, and when they arrive at the landfill, that commercial hauler has to pay the full going rate coming across that scale.
Thank you very much. Okay, we have a motion on the floor. The vote is now open. Oh, maybe it is not. The vote is now open. The vote carries. Next item. We have 3 more items. Definitely 5 minutes. 7.3, airport land use. Wes Hicks, please. Oh, I'm sorry. Craig, go ahead.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Although the airport is a function of the Department of Public Works, this discussion is specifically pertaining to land use. As part of the strategic master plan that you approved back in February of 2021, one of the action items on that list was essentially that we do a land use planning review to ensure that our land uses in our zoning bylaw are appropriate for the airport, and subsequently that the land uses in our neighboring RM of Buckland are appropriate as well. So when we did our zoning bylaw review in 2019, we did anticipate some significant attention to be spent on the airport. So at that time, we worked very closely with our airport manager, Corey, and we developed a list of land uses that we felt were appropriate for the airport. The one change that we did implement in the new zoning bylaw was that every land use, regardless of whether it was permitted or discretionary, whether it required council approval or not, was forwarded to our airport manager. That is an initiative that we did anyways, but now it is actually mandated in our zoning bylaw. So regardless of who holds my position or Corey's position, that is a reliable source of enforcement through our zoning bylaw. Another thing that we did undertake in our new zoning bylaw is called our Airport Overlay District, which is essentially a 4-kilometer radius around the airport that could have implications on the functionality of our airport. So everything within that 4-kilometer radius gets referred to our airport manager, just to confirm that it won't obstruct the what's called the object limitation surface, or the essentially approaching the airport from any direction. So that's another thing that we implemented in our zoning bylaw as well. We also confirmed that all of our land uses in our zoning bylaw conform to and are supported by the airport strategic master plan. So we did confirm that as well, and all of the land uses do conform. And then obviously we looked at specific airport considerations. I know this is an area of expertise which I simply don't have, but I know we've got a number of aprons, I believe 3 of them. We've got a couple taxiways. We've got that object limitation service, which is essentially in the air. And all of those have federal and provincial and federal implications. So we also have language in our zoning bylaw to accommodate that. So I'm quite confident that our zoning bylaw is adequate when it comes to airport land uses. However, the one thing that you'll see in this recommendation is the RM of Buckland. We did take a look at the RM of Buckland, and they do not have any reference to our airport. So what I'll be doing is at an upcoming District Planning Commission meeting and a subsequent RM of Buckland Council meeting is request that they do put some sort of language in their zoning bylaw with that same 4-kilometer radius, so that if any type of land use they develop is simply referred to our airport manager, we can keep it pretty high level. I have had some informal discussions with the planner, with the RM, and he's doesn't see any significant implications of doing so. So with this evening's motion, if approved, I'll be preparing that letter and asking to present to the RM of Buckland, so that at the very least our airport is protected from the city side and the RM side. I can answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Director. Councillor Cody.
Yes, I certainly agree with this recommendation, because there's no question about it has been a bit of a problem with the RM of Buckland, and we need to get that squared around, because there's starting to be activity at the airport, and we want to have more activity at the airport, and we can't do it because they don't have the same kind of rules, regulations that we do, and they need to have those as well. And I have to give you a lot of credit for bringing out this recommendation. I certainly agree with it, and we'll move it, and hopefully those matters can be put in writing and down on paper, so that we know that when there's someone wants to do something, we have the full force of both regulations that you can use. It's tough to build out there, simply because NAV Canada is not easy. They have to be very particular about what they do, and that's why our Green Park is doing nothing. You can't do anything out there. It's tough to do, just because you can't have any smoke, you can't have any light, you can hardly have anything. So I think this here will help even in that regard. So I appreciate you doing that, and I certainly move the report.
Thank you. Councillor Head.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you for that, and thank you for your report, both of the directors on the names in here in our agenda. I know we've done a lot of work, and we've heard a lot of reports around the airport, vital to our city, and it sounds like this expansion or potential of is crucial for our growth here in the city. So thank you for bringing this report forward and to doing the proactive work that you guys are talking about here. Good luck in those deliberations, and I definitely look forward for a follow-up report on this as well. So well done.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor. Ready for the vote? The vote is now open. The vote carries. Next item. 7.4, Little Red River Park Development, presentation by Tim Yeaman.
I know, 5 minutes. And so I am
Okay,
disappointed
I
they
wanna
left, though.
see.
I am disappointed they left. So they didn't want to hear my presentation, but I had to sit through theirs, right? So,
Don't take it personally, I am sure.
but I'll be honest, I'm hungry, so so we'll cut to the chase and get to the good stuff. So actually, I'm just doing an update for you on Little Red River Park, and I'm going to go right into the meat of the report. Actually, I don't want to go over 2021. That information's there for you to review, but I do want to focus in on the priorities that we've committed to for 2022. Just noting that we have a financial commitment of $1.2 million that's going into that park this year. And that's a commitment from the Rotary Club of Prince Albert for $520,000. Malcolm Jenkins Family Foundation for $400,000, and the City of Prince Albert for $280,000. The great thing is that we've struck this partnership, and it works really well for the city. And without these community organizations, we wouldn't be able to do what we do out there and throughout this city. So the Rotary Adventure Park, if you've been out there, it's actually currently under construction right now. We've certainly had some delays with the weather this year. It certainly hasn't been very cooperative, but I've been in constant contact with the contractor, and we're doing the best we can to complete this project. But I also realize that we want to make sure it's done well, so we're going to take the time that's needed to make sure that we deliver an excellent product. We also have a commitment to improving the parking, roadway, and lighting out at Little Red as well. So we had a financial commitment from the city this year, which is great, for $146,750. So we're going to be, we've been working with Public Works on developing what that parking is going to look like. So we have a commitment, and I believe some of that parking will be, the construction of it will begin here shortly, but we have 66 new stalls that will be going in at the Toboggan Hill. We have an additional 47 stalls that will be going into that existing large parking lot just south of the Cosmo Lodge, so that large area. And then we have another 38 stalls that will be put in and around the Cosmo Lodge. And then we have parking lot lighting improvements as well that we'll be working towards. We've also committed to developing a resource management and emergency preparedness plan that encompasses the entire park. Kinsman Ski Hill, Cosmo Lodge, user groups operating within the park during the 4 operating seasons, and consultation with all levels of emergency services. User groups will also be required, or we'll invite them to participate in that conversation as well. We've also committed to providing council a report at the September 12th council meeting on the work and costs involved to accommodate the hosting of festivals and other major events within the Upper Plains area of the park. This is currently being reviewed as directed by resolution of council as per the Chesterfest report 2285. And then if you've been out there, we have these beautiful 3 brand new bridges that have been installed. They certainly change the feel of the park and make it feel much different, and actually will be a great tribute to providing better accessibility to the remainder of the park and for those who come out and enjoy it. We'll also be continuing our partnership with the SPSA through their Smart Fire Management, DMAF program. So we've committed to a 5-year partnership with them at a total cost of just over $30,000 commitment from the city each year. So in total for 2022, we'll see close to a $3 million investment within the park itself, which is fantastic. I do want to make one comment. Community Services has applied for a federal grant. I've been in constant conversation with one of the ladies who's been helping us with that grant application. They're very interested in creating accessibility for the park, for users of the park and through the parking lots and the pathway systems. So we've applied for a substantial amount of money. We're very hopeful that we'll get confirmation that we've received that grant. So that'll push us over that $3 million amount for investments this year. 2023 priorities, new compostable toilets, washrooms. We continue to investigate and look at what options are available. With the economy right now and trying to get our hands on this type of equipment, there's certainly delays in ordering anything right now, so we want to be mindful of that. Also, putting in a 16 by 24 warm-up shelter would be another one. And then looking at playground programming once the playground is complete out there. And then 2024 priorities, looking at a new ski lift for the Kinsman Ski and Snowboard Center, and also providing water service to the old log cabin, Cosmo Lodge, Toboggan Hill area. So we've had a new water main that's been run out there, which will provide us with the ability to create our own snow at the Toboggan Hill. So we're probably still about a year and a half away from completing that as well. Other than that, I'm open to any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much. Questions for the presenter? Mayor Dion.
A couple questions. When it comes to washroom, I'll get you the contact name, but AVCO makes what they call semi-portable and permanent washrooms. You can move them, and they hold quite a volume. They say they last a week without being emptied. And so I'll get you that information because I think that's one thing you could look at because they can be placed everywhere.
That'd be great.
But I think I'm going to get you to, I warned you on this one, I'm going to ask this question. And so the public knows, the park will flood. The Venture Park will flood. So you tell me how we've made it so it will abstain and survive through a flood.
Correct.
Because it will. And I hate to say that, but every 5-6 years, our Saskatchewan River gets high and we flood. And that's right in the low basin, so it will flood. So if you could just assure us that you've made that equipment and all the bases and everything preparing for the flood.
Correct. So it is a great question, and we've always anticipated that we are building in a flood area. And we've been working on this project for close to 3 years now, having many conversations with the contractor, talking internally as well. There's never, ever any guarantees that we'll never get through a year without a flood, but the equipment that's being installed is being installed so that the main pieces of equipment remain stabilized. We understand the surfacing material, the sand, and the fibar, which is the shredded wood material. We will probably have to do some maintenance and replacement of that. But in order to make this area functionable, right, for the public to be able to use, because it is our core center area of the park, it's a chance that we've taken as a city and as a department, but we understand that we're building legacy. We're going through this with the thought process that we're going to come out successful, right? But we're going to deal with those small issues as they pop up. And we continue to be in constant conversation with, our fire chief, right? And having conversations with him about what that looks like. Conversations with Public Works, preparing us for those events when they do arise. So I'm confident that the public is going to be very excited, that they're going to be able to use this park space more often than not. But when we're not able to use it, that's when we're going to mobilize our crews. Once that flooding has gone down, get out there, clean up everything and make it presentable and useful for the public again.
Thank you. Councillor Lennox up.
Question regarding the washrooms. I've heard from members of the public telling me, look, if we're going to spend the money to put washrooms out there, could we have washrooms that kids can use when they're tobogganing? So that would be able to be in use during the winter, like rustic type of washrooms that could still be used in the winter. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I know that washroom facilities are certainly a challenge out there. Our main washrooms that are heated are at the Cosmo Lodge, and certainly those are open to the public year-round. But it is a challenge. We have looked at some options. What we're limited to out there is environment and the cold. So when we open up an outhouse during the wintertime and we're dealing with extreme cold temperatures, that waste actually freezes. There's no way to pump it out of those outhouses, and the outhouses actually do get pumped out. So I've been looking into what options are available. There's some unique technology that's available out there. It's trying to find the right technology that works for our environment, but it's certainly something that hasn't been lost on us. And I do know the washrooms that the mayor is talking about, if we had the ability to hook up to power year-round, those washrooms would be heated and we wouldn't have to worry about those issues. But it's certainly something that's on the tip of our minds when we're going out and researching this and making sure that we pick the right option for the environment that we're putting it in.
Any thoughts about the style of washrooms you see in the Prince Albert National Park that are rustic but that are used in winter?
Yeah, those actually, I admire the ones that are up at Waskesiu. They've done a really great job with them. Certainly a big investment. They're working with federal dollars, so to try and find that type of investment for washrooms within our park would take a substantial donation from somebody who's willing to help us with that project or look for federal funding to be able to do that, or even provincial funding. But where they would be located, it would have to be close to a power source in some place where we have easy road access to be able to pump out on a regular basis, which would more than likely be the Cosmo Lodge area, utilizing that area down there a little bit differently, or possibly up in the north parking lot where we would have a little bit more room to work with. So it's certainly not lost on us, and something that we should continue having that conversation and look for those solutions.
So I think what I'm hearing is you saying that there is not access for power plugins over by the tobogganing hill to be able to have washrooms in the winter for tobogganing.
Correct. We have limited power resource there, and to bring the type of power that we need to support some of these type of infrastructure would require significant dollars to bring that power from main pedestals over to those areas.
Is your plan, when this comes back to budget, to provide council with different options to show the pricing for something that would be winter and something would not?
I'm certainly working to come up with the solutions that I think would be viable and something that I would bring back and present to council. So that's something that I would take into advisement as I'm working through this for budget time.
Yeah, just a comment that I think the public, if we're spending the money for bathrooms, we don't need them by the Cosmo Lodge because we have the Cosmo Lodge, but tobogganing certainly is a need. Another question, the report indicates an adult workout area, and I'm wondering, is the intention to have an adult workout area in visual proximity to the playground so that parents would be able to have children playing and then parents could be active as well?
Correct. Actually, the workout area for the adults is in close proximity. It's kind of, when you walk out there, there'll be a connected pathway. So you walk around and all of that equipment is within close proximity to the other equipment. So it's a wide open area, which gives you great sight lines. But the children's area, when we planned it, is closer to the picnic shelters. And that's where one of the proposed bathroom facilities would be. And then as you branch out, you'll have your 8 to 13-year-olds, and then you'll get your adults. They'll kind of have their own little area over there as well. We're certainly not restricting any of the equipment to any age range, but definitely parents will have access to their kids and be able to see what they're doing at all times.
Great. And last question, I received a concern regarding the Cosmo Lodge that there is currently a sign inside the Cosmo Lodge that states no outside food or drink. And the concern that I've received is that members of the public are telling me I no longer feel comfortable going into the Cosmo Lodge just as a public place to maybe just, take a breather, or maybe I don't want to buy anything. It feels more like I need to go in, and if I go in, I need to be purchasing, and so I'm wondering what the department's thoughts are about, are there ways to maintain the feel of the Cosmo Lodge that I guess, signage or something so that the public knows that it is still a public space. They don't have to buy things to be in that location, because when we did vote on having this contractor attend, one topic that did come up at council was that, we are maintaining this as a public space and that people don't have to buy to be in there and take a break.
Correct. So, great question. It's certainly something that I'd want to do a little bit more research on so I could provide a better answer for you. But from what I've seen, one of the things that we're trying to do is develop that area down by the Cosmo Lodge so that there is more seating specifically outside of the Cosmo Lodge for people to be able to recreate and to be able to enjoy. But also that warm-up shelter that is proposed for, I believe, next year would be another place that we see a need that needs to be developed so people can go and have that respite and be able to hang out there and to be able to do things as a family. I don't think we expected the Cosmo Lodge to be as busy as what it has been. It's really been a drawing card. It's been that central point for the park that is drawing in people from all over the province. So it's just not people from Prince Albert that is visiting and utilizing the facility, but from all over the province. So it's a great news story. It's certainly something that we need to take into advisement. I'm not sure if there's restrictions in regards to when we talk about health and people bringing in food from the outside. I'd want to do a little bit more research and have that conversation with the contractor. But I know Barb is doing a fantastic job out there and really working hard to make sure that everybody's needs are met. And if we're missing something, then we need to go back and we need to have those conversations.
Yeah, last comment is that those are good starters. I do think, though, in addition to what you said, that also remember that building is a public building, and that you've talked about kind of outdoor spaces, but there are skiers and people that may want to feel comfortable entering the Cosmo Lodge in the wintertime and know that it's still a public space and they can have a water bottle or else. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's no requirement to purchase anything if you go into the Cosmo Lodge, and maybe that's some wording that we need to work on. But absolutely, there's absolutely no requirement for any member of the public to come in and purchase something from the restaurant if you're there. If you want to go in and sit down and sit by the fire, you're more than welcome to do that.
Thank you. Councillor Grodnick.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'll move the recommendation. Thank you for your report, Tim. And I guess we can't control people's perceptions of signs. Just because the sign says that, you're still welcome. And it is a public building. I get that. And that would be my comment to if somebody's told me that they didn't feel welcome in there because of that sign, well, I would just say, no, you are. You can go in there. And, because it is a public building, you don't have to buy anything. That's the whole idea of the Cosmo Lodge. So that's what I would say if I got that phone call to the resident that made that. Anyways, thank you for your report, Tim, and I'll move the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Zurkowski.
Tim, I'm so excited about what's going on there at the Little Red. $3 million, all the work this year, next year into 2023. This is a game changer for people will be traveling further and staying longer in Prince Albert because of the Little Red. So thank you for that. It's very exciting. It's a game changer for our families and for our kids. It really is. And I'm excited for council support and administration support for these projects coming forward. And thank you for your work on that. 3 points, if I may. Is the department going to consider hours of operation?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. The other two, security. Are we close to having some sort of solution so that when we have destruction at a gate, we are able to capture that vehicle and license plate number moving forward? Because I think that's the number one.
Yeah, so it's something that is considered under the parking lot lighting improvements, and we have spoken with being able to work towards getting security cameras on the Highway 55 side for right now, because would be the easiest of the two entrances to work with.
Good stuff. And the last point, we talked about improvements to the parking lot. We're not considering, are we considering asphalt, pavement, concrete, and the whole deal, or are we leaving it natural to the area?
It's actually, so in talking, because we have some issues with the roadways out there, and they get rutted up quite easily because of the jack pine sand and the gravel. Working with Public Works, Marcel, He's suggesting that we go to millings, which would also help keep down the dust throughout the park as well.
Sure.
So it'll provide a more stabilized surface for vehicles to drive on and for us to walk on.
And I'm okay with that. Just some thought that potholes do provide value and it slows vehicles down in that pedestrian heavy down below. So, and I know the department's gonna do a bang up job on that, but I don't necessarily think we need to provide it an easy roadway for people to pick up speed down there.
Correct.
Thank you, sir.
We could put in a few speed bumps.
Yeah.
Thank you. Not seeing anything else. We have a motion on the floor. The vote is now open. The vote carries. And our last item. The forest. Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll move to adjourn.
We have one more. We have one more item.
Hey, it's okay. It's okay.
I'm going to
That
move it
means
to-
I'll keep it really, really short, so.
We have one more item on the agenda, 7.5 Forestry Management Plan update. Sorry, everyone, but we do have one more item. Councillor Zurikowski moved the motion.
Okay, I will keep this short. I just wanted to come to council tonight to share with you what our plans are for 2022, so you guys are aware that, we are focused on the forestry program and making some inroads. As I had shared in the past, we're 45 plus years behind in our forestry practices, which means we're not getting to the trees that we need to get to. And we've seen instances last year where we had several windstorms that came through and damaged the trees. In the areas where we were able to get to the block pruning and clean up the crowns of the trees, we had less damage compared to areas where we have heavy leaf growth, heavy canopies, and we ended up with severe damage. So council was gracious and gave the forestry department $143,800 to utilize this year. And I've been very cautious in how I move forward without those dollars. And I'll explain why. Currently, right now, we don't have a tree inventory for the city of Prince Albert. It's very difficult to know where to plan and how to manage unless we know where our trees are and how many of them we have, and then what the species of those trees are, because we prioritize our maintenance of those trees based on the species. So currently during late fall, September through April would be our elm. So if we don't know where our elm are, it's very hard to concentrate on the effort to be able to get out and tackle areas in groupings. So what I'm trying to do is consult internally, trying to make a plan for how to best utilize these dollars for this year, ensuring that we have a plan moving forward that council is comfortable with, that I am comfortable with within our department, ensuring that we can execute and we come out with the best possible results. Some of this money this year will be used for a tree inventory at the golf course, which we recognize that we do need. The trees at the golf course, there's just so many of them, and we need a plan of how to deal with some of the more hazardous type trees. So we need to know what we have there, and we need to understand what our abilities are, and then plan moving forward to be able to execute that plan as well. One of the other things that we're committed to undertaking is committing that, or committed to that partnership with SPSA and the DMAF funding for fire smart management. We want to continue on our focused block pruning program. So if you drive down 15th Street East, you'll see that the crews have been through 15th Street East all the way out to Marquis. It makes a huge improvement. So if you haven't driven that way lately, take a drive and see if you notice anything different about that street. But it really cleans it up, lifts the skirts of the trees, makes the streets feel wider, but you're also you have a better line of sight for the vehicles and the pedestrians as well. Continuation of our Dutch elm disease survey. So currently, we contract out the Dutch elm disease survey because we don't have the expertise in-house to be able to identify Dutch elm disease. So we rely on a contractor who has extensive knowledge of elm trees and how they function, and Dutch elm disease. So currently, right now, we do have a concern within the city over on McLeod and Agnew. We have one dead elm that's sitting there. We're not sure why it's dead, but if it doesn't leaf out here in the next week, we will be required to take it down immediately. So this is why we do the Dutch elm disease surveys, because we need to be able to identify where our issues are within the city, get to those trees immediately, take down those trees. We can't wait. We have communities outside of the city of Prince Albert where they've had rows upon rows of elm trees that have died, and the municipalities or the townships don't know that they're elm, and they've been sitting there for months, if not years, which has created a whole new issue for the province itself. So we want to protect what our assets are here in the city and make sure we can control Dutch elm disease. You can't cure it, but at least you can control the movement of it through the city by eliminating the firewood. So when they come in and do the Dutch elm disease survey, they check private and residential. And then we take that information and we communicate with the homeowners. A lot of times our forestry crews will remove any elm firewood for free. We don't charge it back to the customer because it's really an educational process. Working with community partners such as PA Model Forest on tree planting initiatives. So PA Model Forest is currently working with school groups similar to the Power 99 FM Plant a Tree Day that we used to have a couple years ago. So they've kind of taken up a little bit of that, and they're planting throughout the community, along riverbanks, those type of things, and working with the schools and different community groups, which is making a big difference there. Watering, maintenance, and care of all new trees and shrubs. So I've taken a drive around again this year. Of course, we've lost some trees. We expect to lose trees throughout a season, but I'm glad that Muzzy Drive is really coming along nicely. We've done a really good job managing that over there and making sure those trees are alive, but we've failed in other areas. So we're trying to make some corrections in how we deliver those services. Continue training and educational opportunities for our forestry staff. So they currently just attended at the Art Hauser here. We had over 20 individuals that attended a forestry event, teaching them about pest management, identification, best management practices, those type of things. Collecting of data and comparative statistics to share with council. So we still need to do a better job on that and delivering to council those reported statistics, so you know how we're making out. Partnership and collaboration with SAS Polytech. So we continue our work with SAS Polytech, with their GIS students, with other students within the organization that help us with collecting data. So we're looking at options of how we can best utilize their students. It's a great partnership because their students need training, we need help, and it works out for everybody involved. And then continued efforts with communicating with Public Works and any projects that they have going on, making sure that we're communicating that to the public. If we're removing more than 3 trees, that we have those conversations with the communities that are impacted. We meet with the communications department as well, and make sure that we've covered off everything before the season begins, and make sure that we're prepared for what's about to come. And we continue to work with Public Works to identify any barriers that we've experienced in the past. I can tell you this, that it's been a pleasure over the last 2 years working with Marcel and Nicole when it comes to projects. What we like to do is, as a forestry department, get out ahead of their work so that we can complete the work before they get there, instead of them waiting for us to complete the work so that they can get on with their jobs that they're trying to do. So it's been a really good partnership. It's been some learning lessons, but we certainly appreciate the fact that I think we have a much better defined system of how to work together to ensure that we're providing positives in the deliverables and making sure that the community is seeing the benefits of that as well. So other than that, I will end my presentation at there.
Thank you. I see no lights. Motion is on the floor. I'm looking for it. Yeah. Oh, there it is. There it is, right there. Got it. Sorry, everyone. The vote is open. We're missing one person. The vote is carried. Councillor Miller moves to adjourn. All in favor? We will return at 8:05.